Good day, folks. Hey, this is Dr. Terry and Tom, and we are here from the Metaphysical Mysteries. And we're celebrating our 50th episode. And so we picked the best of the best psychic mediums. That category is what we're talking about today. And one of the two that we picked is with us here, Taffeny Hicks from the great state of Kentucky, or should I say Commonwealth, and Eastern Kentucky. Different than Western, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so we're very happy to have you here, and we've had you before, and accolades have come in since your first appearance, and so we're real happy to have you. And for the listeners, what the heck are we doing here? What's special about this? Well, what's special is, we get a chance to have readings from lots of different psychic mediums by doing the show, and it's kind of a way we see whether they got their act together or not. Well, and I always kind of say that I have a rating system, kind of like I tell them, if you get a psychic mediums at the 70 percentile, you've got a good one. But if you get somebody at the 90th percentile or higher, you've got extraordinary. Well, we wouldn't bring anything less than extraordinary here. So Daphne's above that 90 percentile in our illustrious opinion. And so we really want to try to learn from her, because people ask all the time, well, how do psychics do this? I mean, how do they talk to dead folks? How do they talk to angels? How do they talk to guides? What's the Akashic records? And, there's a whole preparatory process as well. So we're going to break this up into little parts. And so hopefully you guys can follow along out there. So if you're practicing or you're brand new at it or want to learn, then maybe this will have some. And maybe for those of you who are already doing it, this will reinforce what you're doing, that these folks that are really good at it are doing a very similar thing as you. So, Tom, you have any intro stuff to start with?
Man, I can just tell the audience, we've worked with Taffeny now multiple years, and it's always an amazing time when she gets into her place where she starts feeding information dead on all the time. So looking forward to today and see where we end up.
Fantastic. Well, welcome.
Thank you so much. Wow. Yeah. Thank you.
Tell us how you get ready for one of these things.
Well, I usually have a very basic protocol. It's not anything fancy or high maintenance or complicated, because I was born this way. So it's fairly easy. Usually every morning when I go in my office, I always burn dragon's blood to clear the vibrations and the energies.
Because I'm going to stop you and tell everybody that's listening to dragon's blood, it sounds like something scary out of the Middle Ages. Dragon's blood is simply an incense, and they put that name to it. It smells excellent. I have a lot of it myself. And that's the one it's my go-to. But dragon's blood is not real dragon's blood, people. This is just an incense that goes through the house, makes you feel good and all that, and smells really nice. So go ahead.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's a wonderful incense. And the reason why I use it is supposedly it's the kind of the big guy, right? It's the one that clears darker energies, demonic, satanics, just things like that. So when you use it, you're really busting out all that energy. And so I normally burn that every morning. I always anoint myself with sacred oil. It just raises my vibrations, because frankincense is in the sacred oil mix. And so it's the highest spiritual frequency of the oils. So I always anoint myself, and then I go into just a prayer. It's a pretty basic prayer. I always ground myself into the earth, especially in the mornings, because we've been out of our body at night, and we tend to astral travel, right? And so when you ask to be grounded, sometimes you can feel yourself coming back into your body fully. And then I always ask to be connected to the God consciousness and aligned and balanced. And then I set up my spiritual parameters, my white light of protection, so that only the highest truth, I always ask for the highest truth and the highest light to come through for the person that I'm channeling for. And then I ask that their spirit team comes in. And really that's it. It's so easy. I think connecting with the spirit world is so simple, really, and it's very basic. And actually, from what I just learned this week, from a teacher, and I did not know this. I saw this man teaching and lecturing, and he said that three things have to align in our brains: the frontal lobes, the pineal in the middle, and the medulla, the reptilian part of the brain in the back, the brainstem. And once we get those three things in harmony and in sync, then the energies can come through, but they have to stay balanced.
Yeah.
And
So
I've never been taught that before.
that, and they've done science on that, where they put people in the caps and so forth, and they can see the different parts of the brain, particularly in the back, and of course the pineal and so forth. So I think that lines up with the science that we're aware of. But
Okay.
my question is, okay, so you're getting ready on your side. How do you prepare a sitter? And for the listeners, a sitter is somebody who's, actually paying for a reading. They're asking for data. They don't have to be paying. They can just be sitting there. But
Okay.
how do you prep them? What do you tell them to do?
Well, usually in all of my first time readings, I will explain to them a few things that I feel are extremely important to me and for them to understand. Number one, I explain to them that I've called in their spirit team, and that from what the angels call me, they call me the speakerphone. The spirit world calls me the microphone. And I tell them I don't run the show and I'm not in charge. Your spirit team is. And God is with us, and God is around us. And so that's what I trust, because the spirit team, they come through every single time, and they always know what we need to hear. I like to go into every session cold, which means I don't want to know anything.
Right.
Because, the way I look at my abilities here is I believe that this is something that I came in to do for a specific purpose, to help humanity. And as a double Virgo, I'm always working on myself to try to improve those abilities so that I can help greater, deeper, wider. And so I want the confirmation to come through as much as my client does. And
Right.
that's really important to me.
Evidentiary mediumship. So give me some evidence that, something
Exactly.
that there's no way I could possibly know. It's something that only
Right.
the sitter would know. That kind of
Right.
thing.
And I tell their spirit team that sometimes if they're giving us a little bit vague answers, I'll kind of dive in and go, no, I want specifics here. I want to show this to them. And I think that that's extremely important also, because it gives a person believability.
Right.
And not to go down the rabbit hole of religion versus spirituality, and, oh, we just got to have faith and believe in this presence that loves us, but life is so hard. And, I won't try to put all those pieces together today, but to me, it proves the other side, because they say things. I try to say things exactly word for word as they say them, because I don't know their lingo and their language, but the person that I'm reading does. And so people will say to me, oh my gosh, Taffeny, my grandmother, that's my grandmother, or my father would have totally said that to me, or used that language. And so the provability and the believability is extremely important. And I feel like that every person that I read, it's my job to connect them to their spirit team and bring through other densities to give them hope and faith and belief and understanding that it's not really a complicated matter, and that we really are surrounded, right?
Yeah.
So I kind of explain a little bit of that to them. And I also tell them two other important things. I cannot predict your free will. I can't. Nobody can. That's something God gives us. I tell them I can tell you the trajectory you're going down unless you make a change. I can tell you your past lives. I can tell you things that have happened. I can tell you your soul contract and your destiny points that they're showing me, but I can't predict your free will. That's between you and God. And the other thing that I always tell my clients is, you know, I'm on your team. I'm in your corner. I don't have any judgment. That's not my business. It's not my place. And everything that I channel is confidential, and I won't remember it tomorrow anyway, because what comes through my brain and out my mouth, that information belongs to my client and their spirit team. And my job is to love them, support them, and be the speakerphone and bring through as much information as I can.
So when we talk about making this connection, you know, we talk about the senses that everybody has, and then, you know, the five senses, and then the sixth sense is kind of the one that kind of helps pull all that together, because that's how they communicate with us, is through our senses. You want to go through a little bit how that works?
Sure. So I'll start with the clairvoyance, the gift of sight, and how that can be used, and how I use that is I see mostly with my third eye. When I was a child, I could actually see with my physical eyes, and it scared me so bad I kind of shut that down, and a lot of people do that.
Yep.
So yeah, so when I see with my physical eyes, you know, I see angels, and sometimes I see sparkles, or I'll see outlines of beings or energies. And clairvoyance can also be dreams, prophetic dreams.
Right.
You know, for instance, my sweet new granddaughter that I had this year, I'll try not to cry. She came to me twice in a dream. She came to my mother before my mother passed. She came to my stepmother, and she came to one other great grandmother. So she made her presence known all the way around the family.
Yeah, I guess
And so prophetic dreams can happen. They can be in symbols, or they can be actual. So that's clairvoyance. And I always use that. All of my gifts are always on, functioning together all the time in harmony.
Right.
And then there's clairaudient, which is the gift of hearing. And that can be heard by an outside voice, or it can be in our minds, which most of the time, from what I understand, that's how people hear. And it can be in our own voice, or it can be in another person's voice that you will hear. And I think I told you the last time we were talking that sometimes whenever I go into sessions and I've got someone from a different ethnic background, and one of their ancestors comes through, sometimes they're speaking Italian or they're speaking French, and I'm like, no, I don't understand that. You have to speak English. So sometimes we actually hear their language, their native language. So that's clairaudient. And then there's claircognizant, which, in my opinion, I think I told you guys that I think that's one of the most powerful gifts to have, because it can't really be altered. And you can second guess it, but when it comes through, it's usually so powerful. And that's the gift of just knowing. You just absolutely know. And I would say to the listeners, if you're going to pray or work on one, that would be a really great one to have. Claircognizance is powerful for a lot of reasons, but I think the most important reason is that's just the one you can't really manipulate, or that it can't be manipulated from outside sources.
And I think it's
Right.
almost them directly putting a message in
Yes.
your head saying, this is it. And
Yes.
you know it, you know, so
Right.
I get that. I obviously use that a lot myself.
Right.
So
And can I talk about two different parts of the claircognizance that
sure.
I feel like is the listeners really need to know? Because, and I won't go down the rabbit hole on this one either. I could talk for hours, but because we're in a major grid shift, magnetic grid shift on the planet, we're going from the flower of life grid, the 3D grid structure, where our consciousness was very suppressed. And we're going to the crystalline spiral grid, where we're going to 4 and 5D consciousness. Okay. And I won't go into how that affects humanity, but if you ever want to do another podcast, I would be happy to talk about it, because this is a really powerful transition right now. And from what the angels tell me, the new grid will actually be locked in place April of next year when we go through the gateway of Aquarius into the new age. And it's just a very powerful time. A lot of people are struggling a little bit with the shift, but two of the things that I want to talk about with the claircognizance, I think, is being affected by the new grid. And I'm saying this to the listeners and you guys because I've seen the claircognizance shift in my readings and with my abilities. So I'm learning a little bit more. So we know that claircognizance is telepathy is a form of that, right? Is mind to mind connection and understanding. And of course, we've had a lot of that even in the 3D grid structure. But one of the things that I experienced, and you guys may have already had this happen to you, this is not common for me, is a couple of weeks ago, I got a complete download. And I shook for about 10 hours. And, you know, in reading, sometimes the person's spirit team will just kind of put things in my brain, and then I'll know it, and then I have to figure out the words to describe what they just put in there, right? So that's more telepathy, which is great, but the downloads are very different. And what the angels have explained to me is those downloads actually change our DNA, and they're changing how those three parts of our brain are connecting. So it should be actually improving those connections. Okay. So I just kind of wanted to say that. My spirit team actually told me today that was an important thing for the listeners to hear, because they may start getting these downloads, but not understanding what's happening. Okay. Right. So it's totally normal. And then the last gift is the clairsentience. And of course I use that, and that's sensing and feeling. And I will tell you, I think sensing and feeling is super important with all of the gifts, because it gives us a level of understanding and compassion for the other person. And I use that gift along with the others in something that I call profiling. I don't know any other word. The angels told me to use that word. So sometimes when I'm in a reading, I can stick my head in another person's head, or I can step in their energy field, and I can tell you exactly what they're thinking and what they're feeling. And sometimes I just close my eyes and then I just let it all start flowing through. Now, why is that important? Well, number one, it's important because I think it helps me scan a person if there's physiological issues. Sometimes my clients will say to me, Taff, scan me. So I step in their energy field and I run a scan. Number two, I have people that are in relationship crisis, whether it be intimate or just family or friends, and they want to know what the real truth is, or what does this person really feel, or what are this person dealing with. And so it's not any kind of breach of privacy. It is an understanding of what that person is thinking and feeling, so that the person that I'm reading can understand and then make a little bit better decisions on how to handle that situation. Gotcha. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Sure, it does. And I think, you know, the other thing, when you get some of those more, almost like intimate details, people always ask this, so I'll just throw it out there because, you know, the listeners do ask, is are you of the opinion that you should tell everything that comes through, or should you hold certain things back? You know, like say there was going to be a death, or there's going to be a divergence in a family that's going to be significant, you know, whether that's, I don't know, a death or a divorce or some in a car crash. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? And there's going to be the negative news. Is that something that you tell them, or do you prep them for it before you tell them? How do you handle that?
Actually, both. And so we can talk about that for a minute. So usually I do tell my clients, my first time reads, that because I've called in your spirit team and because I've asked them to just bring through the message, I'm going to tell you everything they say. Okay. Because that's how much I trust a person's spirit team.
Right.
Love is love is love is love. And I know that because they're in control, whatever comes through, that person needs to hear. And can I share just a tiny brief story
Sure.
about that? Okay. So I don't remember who I read, and I don't remember what comes through my brain and out my mouth. And like I said, I believe that information is between that person and their spirit team. So it's not my business. So I don't try to remember. I had a client call me, and I've been reading 23 years. And she called me and she said, I'd like to make an appointment. And we got it scheduled. And she said, Taffeny, I owe you an apology. And I said, for what? And she said, well, you've read me one other time. And she said, when I got off the phone with you, I was furious. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry if I hurt you or if I did something wrong. And she said, no, you didn't. She said, let me tell you what happened. She said, when you read me the first time, the only time you've ever read me, she said, you told me that my angel said my mother was going to pass from lung cancer in 2 years, that in 6 months she would get sick and she would be gone in 2 years. And she said, my mother is my best friend. And she said, I was devastated and I was angry. And she said, I swore to God I would never read with you again. And she said, Taffeny, 6 months later, my mom came down with lung cancer. And she said, 2 years later, she said, Taff, I just buried my mom and I would like a reading to talk to her. And she said, let me tell you what I understand now. She said, don't ever hold back what the spirit world tells you, because she said, if you had not told me what my angel was telling you, she said, I would have had a nervous breakdown when my mother was diagnosed, and I would have never been able to support my mother fully and really be there for her. So she said, thank you.
About that. That is something, as a psychic medium, and, like family members that are, I remember one with my daughter. She had given a reading, and she was just randomly going through a hardware store, and she'd given a reading to a lady like a year before, maybe it wasn't even a year, maybe 6 months or so, and told her, said, I hate to tell you this, but a male in your life, very close to you, so it's like father, brother, husband, like that, is going to die in a motorcycle accident. I've been told, and I'm passing it along to you. And so anyway, long story short, she had told those males, and the brother, I think it was, got really hostile, says, oh, that woman, she's trying to put a curse on you, and all that crazy stuff. Well, sure enough, about 6 months later, her husband died in a car crash. But he had got himself all prepared after he had heard that. He had bought life insurance, he had bought all this and got everything squared away. So when this did take place, everything was okay with the family. I mean, the loss of a husband's horrible, but she saw her, just like say, I was with her, happened to be with her and walking through a hardware store, and she came over and gave her a big hug, and she says, thank you for telling me. I didn't know what to believe when you said that, but it actually did happen. I thought you needed to know. And so for the listeners, if you happen to interact with a psychic medium and it's something that happens a year or two later, please reach out to them, because that confirmation is really important, so they know they're on the right path and giving good information, because all psychic mediums kind of live and breathe by the confirmation that you give, either at the sitting or later, as you just described.
That's right. That's right. And, I think there are also times too, Terry, where, I have been told something, but it's not in a reading, and not when I sit down and then turn it over to the team. but times where I'm being given information, and then sometimes they will say to me, or I'll ask them, what do you want me to do with this? Do I need to tell them? And they'll say, not yet, or they're not ready, or we'll tell you when it's time. So I really feel like that the more tuned in we are to our spirit team and to the spirit world, they will navigate that for us. They'll tell us yay or nay, or how does that need to be done, especially if we set up the parameters and the rules in our own session like I do. I'm just going to tell you everything they say, and you do with it what you want to do with it. Yeah.
Right. Tommy?
Yeah, I was just thinking as you're talking about giving all the information, but in the very start of this, we talked about how some of the psychics run at about 50%. So I think maybe we should caution the newer people on how much they give in validation and such, right? Because you'd hate like heck to tell someone that their loved one's going to die and it doesn't happen, or vice versa, whatever. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, here's how I would put it about exit doors. This is just my experience with that. So because we have a soul contract, and the blueprint of that is our astrological chart, right? We actually set up potential exit doors for ourselves. I'm 48 and I've already had 5 in my life. Now, that is always a split-second decision that the soul has to make. I want to stay or I want to go. So the way that I phrase it in my readings is, if I see someone at a potential exit door, I always try to use the word potential, which means they can stay or they can go. And in my experience, I found that it's really important for the person I'm reading, if it's actually them, to know that they're at an exit door, because a potential exit door, because it helps them stay on earth. So sometimes I can get a read on, is it a vehicular accident? Is it December? Is it 8 o'clock at night? Whatever. Or sometimes I don't get a read and I just say, listen, this is the time frame of this potential exit door. Just be really careful. And I've had people call me back and validate and say, Taff, that was bang on. Let me tell you, I knew the instant that I had to make that decision. And let me tell you what happened. And then we have our final exit doors, which means, we got our walk-in papers and we have to, we have to go. Excuse me. So we have to go there. But I think it's important to know the difference between the two. Yeah.
Yep. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about, because psychic mediums, I always tell people, the other side's high vibration and we in our body are kind of low vibration. So for the psychic medium, they've got to bring their vibration up, and the other side kind of lowers it down, meets in the middle. That's the name medium, right? And so when you connect to what we call dead people, it's not really dead, but we call it that, and versus a guide or an angel, or some people say it's the same thing, or even God, Jesus, whatever, whatever higher stuff. How does that feel different when you're talking to maybe I'm going to say a lower level, but a different vibratory level as you kind of move up, because we're human, so we think in order like that. But how does that feel different? How do you discern, I'm talking to an angel or I'm talking to a dead person?
Okay. First of all, excuse me, I've been channeling all day, so I'm losing my voice a little bit. Okay, let me ask you this so that I can answer the question appropriately. Mm-hmm. When you say a dead person, would that be someone who is just crossed over to the other side into the light, or is that someone who's an earthbound?
Yeah, and let me say that for the listeners. My understanding and my issue with this is, typically when people die, there's 2 different kinds of dead folks. There's actually 3, but we're going to call it 2. Like 85% or more go immediately into the light, and that's what Taffany's talking about on the other side. Right. And then there's like maybe 15% that don't. They stay in what I call the gray. Right. And it's kind of, if you look at a layer cake, we're kind of on top when we're alive. And then if you die, one layer down is your gray. And then if you go another layer down, it's kind of the dark, the further, if you will. and then, but if you go to the other side, you're off the cake and out the door. My question would be related first to the people that went over to the
Okay.
light. And then the second was, how do you identify those that are in the gray? And that's what goes bump in the night for the listener, what we would call ghosts. And so they are different vibratory, but I'll let Taffeny explain how it feels to her.
Okay. So the ones that are crossed over into the light, it depends on what level of light they are, because the way that the spirit world has explained it to me is we have 10 levels of light. And so the first level of light, they seem to be real concerned about Earth, and they'll show up in readings and they'll come through. Sometimes they have a difficult time communicating because they're just kind of learning the ropes and learning how to communicate. A lot of times, those particular souls that are new and having a difficult time, maybe an ancestor or another family member a lot of times brings them in and then sort of helps them communicate with me. So they don't ever feel heavy to me, but it's like I know that they're new. The other thing about them is when they're kind of newly crossed over or first level light, usually I feel an overwhelming emotion from them, because when I say I channel, I don't let them inhabit my body. They're outside of me, but whatever they feel, I feel. And it helps me really understand them. So sometimes I feel like if they die from a heart attack, I'll get chest pain. Sometimes if it's a vehicular accident, I may see them floating out of their body, or I may see the broken neck or what happened to them. So they convey to me a lot of different ways, but sometimes it can be very overwhelming emotionally when they come through. Sometimes it takes me a few moments to kind of get a grip on that emotion when they come through. So that's how I interact with the newer souls that are crossed over to first level.
Yeah,
Now,
I would concur with that. That's exactly what happens, because sometimes
okay,
they come through and their emotion is so strong,
yes.
it affects the medium where they start crying
Oh, yeah.
because you're tagged into them and they're literally crying because this person's giving this message. Yeah, so I agree with you 100%. And what you see on TV, though, is usually not that intense on purpose, because it is TV after all. But that really does happen in real settings. So
Right.
let's talk about the people in the gray, the
Okay. Okay, so the people in the gray, I get two different reactions from them. The first reaction, if I'm going into a property or I'm doing a walkthrough, the first thing I always feel is I've got an elephant on my chest. It's hard to breathe. Immediately, an earthbound entity to me is extremely heavy. The second thing is sometimes they come towards me for help, and I always try to be very kind and loving and gentle and help them. And sometimes the ones who are very angry, who don't want my help, they run. They go somewhere else, and they tend to avoid me. But and I don't mean this in any arrogant way whatsoever, please, because I'm a very humble person. But I kind of have to giggle because I have remote viewing and I have clairvoyance. So wherever they go in the house or the building, I see them whether I'm there or not, on that floor or in that room. So I kind of watch them, and then I just give them their space. And if they need some help, I help them. If they're actually haunting or attaching to a person, then we go in and handle business. And we have to bind them, unhook them, clear the person, clear the property, send them into the light, the next dimension, wherever they belong, seal them in so they can't come back, and ask that they be taken care of and given what they need. Yeah.
Yeah, it gets into almost a form of exorcism.
It does. It really does. And I'll tell you, usually I know pretty immediately. It's usually immediate. Like in my home, if the dead, the ones that are in the gray, enter into my field, my house's field, or in the house, I know almost immediately they're there because the energy shifts, because they're bringing with them all those lower vibrational frequencies that is part of the reason a lot of times that they just didn't cross over.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you do you believe, and I've got different views on this depending on the situation, do you believe a person can be forced across into the light, or is it a decision they must make on their own?
That's a really good point. Can I say both?
Yeah, say both.
Yeah, because I think that there's two things here. The first thing is we really are all one body, period, end of question. We make up the Christ consciousness. And so I feel like that as members of the same body, it's extremely important that we help each other, and what that soul can't do, I can step in and say, please, if they need forgiveness, okay, God, let's forgive them. If they need love, okay, let's give them love right now. Whatever they need to get to the light, I want to help give them that. So I think that's how we can affect that. Now, we can never, ever, ever violate their free will. We just can't. It's a God-given thing, and it's never okay to violate any person's free will, as far as I'm concerned. So, we're governed by universal laws, and then we have God laws, or God's laws. And so free will, it vibrates in both of those different levels. And so I believe that I can pray and pray and pray and open portals and do all the things. But if they don't want to go into the light, that's between them and their spirit team or the intercessor that comes in. And if they take them to a purgatory or a holding place or wherever, if they're not ready to go into the first level light, that's between them and their team. But, I believe that we always offer them the best. Even if they don't believe they deserve it, we believe they deserve it. And so we always offer them the very best. The rest is between them and God.
Yeah. Tom and I come from law enforcement background, so the whole free will thing is perfect until you start messing with other people, and then the cuffs come on, and you get taken right in between Tommy and I to the jail. And
Right.
and I think something similar, at least in my line of work, it does happen occasionally where they violated so many other people's free will that they forfeit their free will for a period until they can get themselves properly adjusted, because we just can't have that. Them out running and running amok. And this is where you get into some pretty deep discussions about exorcisms and that sort of thing, and then the difference between the demonics and just the dead folks. I don't know if you've got an opinion on that or not.
Oh, I agree 100%. I agree 100%. And I do believe that in those unfortunate situations, they have to be bound. They have to be, or you're going to waste your time and energy fighting with them.
Yeah.
I think the spiritual cuffs are very appropriate in certain situations. And I also think one thing in particular, if we're not talking about a demonic or satanic, if we're talking about a real soul that's just extremely lost or very, very dark, I tend to look at it as a really ignorant person or a very, very spoiled child. And if you allow the behavior to continue, that soul's not going to learn anything. They're not going to grow. So saying 1, 2, 3, or I'm going to whip you 1, 2, 3. Well, that doesn't really work. And so sometimes we have to do whatever is very necessary for that soul's growth. And sometimes consequences are extremely necessary for a soul to learn. Yeah.
That's the Hank Williams Jr. Attitude adjustment.
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. And can I say one thing about consciousness when it comes to that, that I sort of explain to my clients is whenever you become more self-aware and more conscious and connected and live from your heart, no one has to tell you if you've messed up.
Mhm.
I know the minute I mess up, it doesn't feel right. I know I violated something and I need to get myself straight, back on track, do the forgiveness, do the clearing work, and get myself right. But I understand now the law of karma even more, and it's a universal law because karma is what we sow, we reap. What we put out, we get back. Thought, word, deed, same basic principles. However, what I realized is when a person is not self-aware and they're not conscious, they definitely need the karmic consequences because that's how we learn. Don't touch that stove. It's hot. And then they touch it and then they go, oh, okay, that stove is hot. I'm not going to touch it. Right. So I think that we have big scale of consciousness, but I also think that the karmic law is perfect and it stays in place and we move up and down that scale of consciousness, or hopefully we just evolve,
Yeah,
and we stay at a higher level of consciousness. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
When people come onto this earth plane, I always tell them that this is a place of contrast: hot, cold, salt, pepper, sweet, sour, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And those contrasts, which you just described, is exactly how we learn. And we put all our efforts together from being on the other side, and I can really go into this 3D place, and I can really do it. And then this is your test field. If coming to Earth, you get a special Cub Scout badge for coming here. This is tough. This is not
It's tough.
easy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
people, you're a hero when you get back on the other side because you're like, oh wow, you went to Earth, yeah. It's like the Apollo 11 guys. They've got the jackets on with the big patch, says I've been on the moon. And you're like, so you kind of come back and you're like one of those badasses who did an Earth thing, maybe once, twice, or many, many times. And so
Yes.
that's kind of funny. Tommy, you got something?
Just picturing the badges.
Can I say one thing to that too? That reminded me of this. One of my brothers, I love my siblings very much. I'm one of 9, so there's a bunch of us.
Yeah.
And one of my brothers had just come out of rehab. He had been dealing with alcoholism, and he and I were having this very kind of intense spiritual conversation. And he said to me, he was talking about God and about punishment. And I said, John, I don't believe that God punishes us. I don't believe that. That's not how God works. We're set up in this system with all these laws. And he got it. He got exactly what I was saying. And we were talking about the law of karma. And he looked at me and he said, I get that. He said, but here's what I do believe. I believe that God will let you beat your own ass into submission. And I said, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely will. There's no question about that.
Right.
So yeah, and I just in the last few days I talked to a couple of people talking about a wrathful God. I said, well, if there is one, I haven't found it yet, because something that's pure love has a hard time being wrathful. There's a lot of wrathful people, but not God. And so things get carried out, and then there you are. You've got that situation. So let me go to this. How do you tell the difference between if you're talking to an angel versus what we call a dead person, on the other side?
Well, they have a higher vibration, of course. It's something that you just feel.
That feels how in your body or in your mind? How does that higher vibration translate where you go, yeah, that's an angel?
Okay. Well, first of all, I see them. Okay. So I know who I'm talking to. There are a lot of different branches of angels. You guys know that. I will tell you, I have seen and communicated with the seraphim maybe 3 times. And that one, the first time that I felt the energy field of a seraphim, I don't know why, but I felt like I wanted to fall on my knees and put my head down. It was not in, not that in fear or judgment or that I wasn't loved. It's not like that. It was more of the most powerful energy I've ever felt. And I don't know if that means the seraphim are at a higher level, so they're vibrationally closer to source energy or God energy. But boy, I felt that one all over. And that was really big. Powers and principalities are huge. When they come in a reading, which is not normal, so that doesn't happen every day. So when they come in, they have a very serious purpose, and they usually appear to me very, very large. Guardian and messenger angels, I always feel a lot of gentleness and love with them. They hold the vibration of light, and it's a very warm, sacred, comfortable feeling when an angel is present. So, even though souls feel good that are in the light, they don't feel like angels. There's a different vibration to that. And it's such a difference of vibration that you can close your eyes, and if you did psychometry where you could touch the energy field or whatever gift you choose to use, you could feel the difference literally between a soul and between an angelic being.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you ever had the chance to channel like Jesus or some other ascended master? And what do they feel like?
So sorry, emotion. Well, there's a reason that Jesus is called the Prince of Peace, for sure. He's a beautiful energy that is always full of love for everybody. When I do read, he stands, I always see him every morning on my right side. And this, I don't want to get off topic, but it kind of brings me to something I've also learned this year that the viewers might be interested in.
Okay.
So we all have a spiritual gatekeeper. And Jesus told me that he was my spiritual gatekeeper. And that's why I see him always on my right side. But I also learned this year that we also have an ancestral gatekeeper. And they usually stand on our left side. And, it doesn't necessarily have to be Jesus. It can be whatever spiritual essence or deity or saint, the Blessed Mother, whoever, Muhammad, whatever the consciousness is. And they act as real protectors for us. We really don't understand how protected we are. We are super protected. I mean, you've almost got to run out in the middle of a train to get hit down here because we're so protected, and they warn us, 1,500 times before we do something. I don't think you should do that. I really think you should go a different direction, So Jesus is really powerful. The Blessed Mother, she actually answered 4 prayers for me last year that were like miracles. She's always gentle and loving. I would say love always comes through from, should I say the spiritual hierarchy or the saints or the...
Oh, I lost you there.
I would say that they have a different vibration also, other than angels and regular souls. They're like a soul that has had thousands of lifetimes, and they can hold the vibration of love and compassion, but at the same time, they have all of this knowledge to give us, to guide us, to shift our perspectives and help us understand. But they also have the ability to be very firm and give us what we need at that point. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, I get it.
I don't know if that explained it or not very well.
Well, I tell people, if you actually do get the Jesus experience, I call it that, that it is like he is talking to you and you're the only person in existence, just one-on-one and complete total admiration for you. so interested in everything you think, do, act. I mean, the whole bit. It's kind of an overwhelming presence, where you just kind of want to melt into it. And if you look in the eyes, that takes you away. It's yeah, it's really something. And so a lot of people will say, "Yeah, I was talking to Jesus." Well, I can just say, if you really were, probably wouldn't be saying it exactly like that. It's, it's a whole different experience. And
It
but
is. And can I say one thing about
sure,
that? Is this okay if I just add one thing?
sure.
Only because of a recent experience that I had, um, where usually I communicate with Christ and it's a lot of telepathic mostly,
Yep.
but I understand the experience that you're talking about, because I don't know if it's an integration. I don't know if it's a healing. I don't know if it's a merging. But I got up about a month or two ago and it was really rainy outside. And I didn't really want to go to church. I didn't want to get out in it, had to go to the grocery, all the stuff. And I kept hearing this voice say, "Get up, get ready, you're going to church." And every time I would falter, the voice would say, "Go, go." So I went to church and I love my church. I love people. It's pretty awesome, but it was just kind of normal, nothing different. So it was a good service. And then I went to the grocery, got everything, got in the car, and on the way home, I saw Jesus on my right in the passenger seat. And he said to me, "I want you to sit with me and I want you to sit in my energy." And over and over and over, it was almost like a mantra.
Mhm.
He said to me, "I will never let you down. I will never let you down. I will never let you down," all the way home. And something in my heart was healed. And I cried the whole way home. And it was one of the most powerful experiences. And I'm a medium that
Right.
I've ever had. And so I truly believe that he holds the memory or the vibration or the knowledge or the knowing or whatever it is of who we really are. And it's his job to bring us back to our true origin. And I think that we come down here and we forget and our consciousness drops. And then I think moments like that with Christ or whoever raises our awareness and our consciousness back to who we really are and what we really vibrate at when we're up in the light realms. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember being I just had a question one time that I needed to ask. And so I kind of shifted into where I needed to be and popped in on a past spiritual leader. I'm just going to leave it at that. And I saw him sitting there and I said, "Hey dude, what's happening?" And he's, "Terry, good to see you. I haven't seen you in a long time. How's the wife? How's the kids? All this kind of stuff." And I said, "Perfect, perfect. How's things going with you?" "Great, great." It was a great conversation. And then, so then I asked the question, and he goes, "Yeah, I know what you're talking about." And I said, "I just kind of want to bounce it off of you. I think I got the right answer, and I feel that's the way to go." And he said, "What you were thinking to do, yes, that was the correct answer. If you'd have done what your urge was to do, then you would have inadvertently embarrassed somebody, in this particular case, who needed to be in a kind of a position of authority, and it would have really embarrassed them, but you held back. You took another route, and that was the proper way to go." I said, "Well, just sometimes want to talk it over." Said, "Been a while since I've seen you. Just thought we'd, chit chat a little bit." And he goes, "Yep. Well, you know where I'm at?" I said, "I know where you're at." And I said, "You know where I'm at?" He goes, "Absolutely." I said, "Well, we'll be in touch." And then poof, out we were out. And so I tell people it doesn't have to be this movie IMAX thing. You can actually have there some tremendous amount of humor on the other side, tremendous amount of
Right.
humor. And they're laughing, they're carrying, they think we're silly sometimes. We're just absolutely in this whole patent place and we're running through the soap opera. and they think it's silly, but they know a lot of them have already been here. They get it, and we get so wound up in our daily events, and all the world's coming to an end, and all this is happening. And well, as I tell people, I know how this ends. We win. That's how it ends, and we'll be fine. So, but it's fascinating nonetheless. So, Tommy, do you have something?
I just it's an amazing experience to hear as we explain all this to folks, the different ways this is working. Because most formal religious trainings, I don't think ever talk anything about this. So I know when my mother passed, I had a conversation the night before she left, and her comment was, "Why did I never hear this before?" That's kind of a shame. But I think you have to lower the vibration so you can learn the lessons. If you're at the higher vibration, you might skip over them.
Ooh, Tom, that's a good point. That really needed to be said. Absolutely.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's great.
Well, do we want to do a little demo about how you connect and run Tommy and then run me or something? And if you can, as you shift into different levels, maybe you can tell the listener, okay, I'm going to shift into whatever. I'm going to talk to first dead folks, or they're not really dead, but you know what I mean. And then I'm going to talk to guides, or then I'm going to talk to angels. I'm going to talk to God, or whatever the case may be. So they can kind of see the different rhythm, because I think there's always a rhythm with different levels, and the rhythm becomes significantly different. It's more, to me, it's more choppy at the lower levels and gets smoother and smoother as you go up, and just kind of flows, like the ocean. So it's nice.
Okay. It was interesting that you mentioned Tommy first, because that's where I felt drawn. So as I look at the screen, Terry, you're on my left, Tom, you're on my right. And so I felt immediately drawn to you. And it's interesting you mentioned your mom, because it's like, the interesting thing is I saw mom and dad, though, side by side. They're side by side. And I saw them, and I saw a little spirit that we need to talk about here in a minute. And then I saw your angels behind them. And your mom was saying that she kept saying, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And she was saying that, okay, let me say it like this, Tommy. I don't know that they normally stand side by side. So they're standing side by side, and she keeps saying it's okay. And what she's reiterating to me, the feeling she's giving me, is that whatever issues mom and dad had, it's all gone. She told me that she's telling me now that they have moved to the next level. And she is saying that it's been hashed out. She's also saying that why this is important and why they're coming through is, well, number one, it's Christmas. She said they wanted to say hi and they love you. Number two, let's see if she can explain this in detail, because she said that whenever we pass, basically, and things are left undone, it affects the DNA bloodline here on the earth. And what she's showing me is basically like, because they've buried the hatchet, if you will, your DNA is like cleared or cleaned, or it's all cleaned up. So she says, like, you can go forward now, and you're not, carrying the sins of the fathers, of what they did. I understand that now. So she's saying, you're not carrying their sins anymore. You're free. And she's saying, Merry Christmas, that they got it together over there so you could have your freedom. She's also saying that this coming year, you're going to come into the word, I'm trying to say it word for word, God-given abilities, because she says they belong to you. It is God-given, but you're a part of God. So those abilities belong to you. And she is saying that she is looking forward to this, because she's saying that her and your dad really want to start communicating with you. This is very important, because your mom is laughing and saying, Tommy, you're not getting any younger. And so you don't need to be held down by familial past things that have occurred. And she says that some of these things have made their way energetically into your life and then took root or sprouted and caused problems. And she's saying that she's showing me like burning a garden down. She's saying we're gonna clear that, we're gonna kibosh that. She is saying that her and your dad are gonna come through in your dream time first. And she says they want to show you that they're okay. So that they may come in together or standing side by side. And she says that you have a mate around the corner, but you've got two abilities that really need to burst open first, she's saying, before you meet this mate, because she's saying that this mate is extremely intuitive. And she says that if you grow and the mate's down here, you won't merge. If the mate's already up here intuitively and you're here, you won't merge. You'll miss each other kind of. She says that this next mate is about syncing up. And she says that in this life, you've never really had the experience of merging or being almost one body, where you're the right half, she's the left half. And she is saying that in this life, it's important for you to have that. And she says it's soul contracted for you to have that before you leave. Yeah. Yeah. She says, she shows me like all of these women, and she's saying you're going to be famous. So it must be the podcast, or it must be some of your work, Tom. Well known. She says well known. But she says that this one female will rise up out of the crowd, out of all of them, and she will present herself in such a way that she's saying she will be humble, she will be loving, she will be kind, she will be gentle. And she just said, Tommy, you need gentle in your life. You need that, because she says that you've always had to, the word she's using is harden up and deal with hard asses. That's the word she's using. And so she's saying that you need fluffy, you need fluff, you need sweetness and kindness. And she says that that's what this mate is bringing you, because she's saying you've got so many wounds and scars emotionally, like she's showing me in your electromagnetic field, just some of these wounds and scars that need to be healed. And then the words that she's using is like, that this female will be a healing balm, is the word that she's using. And I'm saying to her, boy, you really better deliver, because this female sounds perfect and great for Tommy. And she just gave me the thumbs up and said, trust me. And she says, I know my son. I love my son. I know what he needs. She's also saying that this is her way, the exact word she's using, this is her way of repairing broken bridges.
I understand. Yeah, pretty cool.
Okay, one other thing, Tommy. This is more like from your angels, and it's more of a telepathic. I think this came up last time you and I talked, but I'm picking up London again.
Okay.
I'm seeing international travel. I'm seeing you speaking at events that are not just in the US, but worldwide. Your angels are saying that, okay, here's the way they're putting it. Like, everybody's got to catch up consciously. And so there are people who have been really, really, really scientific minded and black and white, that haven't put science and spirit together, which makes the whole, right?
Yep.
And they're saying that one of your main jobs, Tommy, is to take the science people that are not in levels of government or military that understand this, like remote viewing, quantum physics, things like that. They're saying your job is to work with first responders or different types of people that have got the science part. They don't have the spiritual part, and they don't understand the energy that links them together. And so your angels are saying they're lacking part of the half, and they need that. And your angels are saying that's why you've got to go out. They keep saying you'll be sent out. There will be requests for you. You're an excellent teacher, and I can attest to that at Terry's. You were funny, and you intelligent, and you're this plethora of knowledge and information. And they're saying that it's like all systems go is the word they just said. And you'll feel that, and that's going to be next year around springtime, March, April. Yeah. And you're going to be like, okay, somebody just flipped the lever and all systems just lit up. So these two, they're circling back to the two abilities that are going to pop open next year. I think they're making a reference to mom and dad again, and how just all the crap. I feel like it's like if you have a door, what they're showing me is if you have a door that needs to come open, that maybe is on the ground and it needs to open up, but you've got boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of junk stacked on top of it, you can't get that door open, right? Mm-hmm. So mom and dad burying the hatchet, coming together, they just cleaned all the boxes off of that door, and now that door can rise. And one of them is going to be naturally, they're saying. The other door is going to take some prying open, and then they're pointed to Terry. So I think Terry's going to help with that. Also, it has to do with your brain wiring, and they were showing me a biofeedback machine. So I think your one ability is going to pop open first. The other one looks like there might be some rewiring with brain, cognition, consciousness, all of that. And then it looks like the other one comes open.
That makes sense. That's what I've been working on the last couple of years with the technology. So that would make sense.
Really? Oh, wow. Okay. Awesome.
I've been telling a lot of that, so I was really happy for a confirmation from somebody else. That should have sounded real familiar.
Did it?
It
Awesome.
Yes, it did.
Well, you know what I always say, Terry, the truth is the truth is the truth.
Absolutely.
And most of the time we line up with other readers, right? We line up because we're all looking at the same amount of truth, and then we just got to bring it through.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, Terry, so let's look at you. Yeah. Okay, so the first thing that I see is really large angels, one on either side of you. And earlier, I didn't say it, but your daughter, Leanne, that's passed away, even when we were kind of waiting on Tom before we started filming, I saw her behind you. And so she's been here. And then I see the two large angels on either side of you. And really what they do, they're telling me, is they just handle the word that I'm hearing is the energetic riffraff, so that you don't have to waste your time clearing and all that. The other thing that they're showing me is that there is another really large angel, and they're telling me that angel is like your guide. They're telling me that one parts the waters. That one parts the waters, because they're telling me it doesn't accomplish a whole lot if you show up down here to do a particular job and you have 15 obstacles between you and doing that job. There's no point in that. You don't have to work with your abilities. You don't have to come into your abilities. You just are, or you've just arrived at that, right? So where they're saying where some people would need 15 blockades or obstacles to perfect their abilities and to jump through the obstacle course to strengthen their spiritual muscles, you don't really need that. but they're saying because life is life and there's 5 different rules of energy, and energy can move things into our paths and block us when we didn't really sign up for it and we didn't create it, right? And so they're saying that that's what that angel is parting the Red Sea, parting the waters so that you can move forward. Then they're saying that they have been holding you back a little bit, because you're ready to go. You're ready to move forward. Now, they're not holding you back because of you. They're holding you back because of the consciousness of the planet. And they're saying that once that grid clicks into place in April, so they're affirming that, they're saying that people's minds are going to light up like a light bulb. And when that happens, Terry, they're going to take their hands off of you so that you can move forward at your own pace again. There's been a little bit of a time delay, and I know what they're talking about. I won't go all into that down the rabbit hole while we're filming on this, but there's been a 3-year time delay that's also affected things. So they're saying that things are going to start happening fairly rapidly. They give me a couple of months. They give like May, September, and then December. And they're saying that you're going to be traveling too. You and Tommy are going to meet at certain places, meet up, but then fly off or go in whatever directions y'all need to accomplish the goals, because they're saying that you and Tommy have worked together in a lot of lifetimes before. This isn't new. And they're saying peanut butter and jelly. So what that tells me is you guys are totally meant to work together, totally in sync, make a great package. And they're saying it's just easy between you guys. They're also saying, Tommy, you may not realize this, but you and Terry are pretty telepathically in sync. There's a level of understanding that you guys have that's more than just speaking the English or the police language or whatever that is. They're saying it's a telepathic link and you understand each other. They're referring to Terry as a big brother. So I feel like maybe that's what he's been in another lifetime to you. So they're saying there's a lot of trust and there's honesty and integrity there. So they're saying that these movements next year, Terry, in those months are really important because, okay, they're showing me like those 3 time periods is almost like hurdles, but not in a difficult way. But when you go from your first hurdle to your second hurdle, it's almost like you're gaining momentum. And then when you go from your second to your third, there's way more momentum. So by the end of the year next year, I'm hearing something like a film or a TV deal for y'all. And it's all going to come together between, I think, September and December. And this is really important because they're saying that you're going to have like an educational program. And this is an educational program, but they're saying that people are actually going to want to be in the audience, that they're not just going to want to watch a podcast for an hour, which is great, or 30 minutes, but they're going to want more time with some of these brilliant people that you guys have been interviewing, because they're saying you pick the best of the best. You look through the box of pearls and you pick out the one that you believe is the very best for your show. You guys do. So they're saying that this is really important also because energy is energy is energy. And so when you bring these people in and this audience is there, they will start, because of the grid, again, being in place by April, they will start actually raising their frequency to the frequency of y'all and the person that's speaking and bringing through information. And they're saying it's sort of like, and there's, this is pretty funny. This is not negative. This is a positive. They're saying it will feel like a Pentecostal church on steroids. Okay. Those are their exact words.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. So it's like people will sync up. And they're also saying that you will bring through you and Tommy will bring through people that have the ability to heal, right? So we know that's an ability in one of the spiritual gifts. And you know, we also know that there are people, I didn't know this till the last couple of years, the fishes and loaves is a spiritual gift, being able to manifest and multiply. So they're saying that people are going to want to be in this energy field and be touched and be moved and be changed and understand and learn and grow. And then they're saying, and then people are going to ask you, build a school, make a school. We want to learn this. We want to understand this. They're using the words hands-on. People are going to want to come and be hands-on. So there's a lot of decisions to make from summer to December of next year. And really, they're saying after the doors blow open, the sky's the limit. It's really up to you guys what you want to form and what you feel like you really want to take on.
Gotcha. That sounds like a mouthful for sure.
Sounds like some of our conversations this past year.
Yeah, it
Wow.
is. It's very much in line, and I have been told about the television film thing 4 years ago by another psychic medium. So they said that is in line for sure, and so everything lines up. Just, you know, I'm giving you feedback because, you know, clearly we get a chance to get a lot of readings, and so I would say for both Tom and I, what you've just said is absolutely in line with what we're getting. Like you say, we're all reading the same material. Some people just a little quicker, a little faster readers, but what we're getting is the same stuff. So I think that's fascinating for the listener to understand. You know, as you go from, you know, one psychic medium to another, they're going to say the same thing in a different way. So you got to be a good sitter, take notes, think about it, get a little cerebral, and it'll all kind of come together. So was there any family members that needed to say anything at this time?
Okay, let me look. I have to tell you two things on that. One other thing that they told me is they said, Terry, you're going to move.
Well, I'm in a pretty communist state.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Sake.
They said you're going to move, and I don't know if Tom's going to move down and you're going to move up or what this is going to be, but they showed me more of a common location between you and Tom that the filming would happen, or it would be easier for y'all.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I heard to explain is I don't normally channel that fast,
Mm-hmm.
but the energies were pretty intense, and I know we're running on limited time.
Well,
So I just let it pour through. But I do tell people it's great if you want to record it, because you can't write fast enough.
Right.
And there are going to be things that come through, and it may not make sense to you at that time, but 6 months later, you may go, oh, that's what they meant when they said that, right?
Agreed.
And so I think it's great to have that recorded in your archives and to go back and kind of reflect and see how things have occurred. The other thing, okay, so when you said any family members, I saw a female and a male, but I felt like that this female had to do with your father who's getting ready to pass.
Okay.
So his mother.
Yeah.
So is this your biological father?
No. I mean,
This is your adopted father?
my biological father passed about 60 days ago, and this is my adopted father, the one I grew up with.
Okay, so you just told me exactly who's here then, because this female is the mother of your adopted father that's passing. I didn't know who the male was, but that's your biological father.
Yes, you're talking to my grandmother.
Yes, but it's really interesting to me that there's no, well, you're the tie. Okay, that makes sense, because I was going to say that there's no blood tie between your adoptive grandmother and your blood father. But when I started to make that statement, they said, oh, Terry is the tie.
Yeah.
He is the tie. And
Yeah.
so let me see if she would like to say anything.
I I miss her peach pie, if that means anything.
That's awesome. Well, she was saying, don't worry. Don't worry. We have him. She says, you know this. This is interesting, Terry. She is okay. She made like a reference to, now that your fathers are over, you're next in line. But then I saw her like pushing her hand up against your chest, like you've got a long time period. So she's kind of holding you back, even though you're the next generation in line.
Right.
You've got a lot longer to live. And she's really funny. Your grandmother kind of cracks me up because she showed me like the telomeres on your DNA, and she keeps like stretching them. Like she's trying to expand them.
Mhm.
And she's saying that you've got a lot to get done. And she's saying that you need to understand that your soul contract, the word she's using is open-ended. So there's not a destiny point of death for you. There's not a date of death for you. She says this is not normal. It tends to be abnormal when it comes to soul contracts. But she says that, now these are her words. I'm trying to say it word for word. She says you can't rush perfection, and that you're down here to do a certain job, and that you will have your telomeres extended to support your physiological DNA structure, and that you are open-ended on time, because she says the last thing that you need is pressure of a time clock to get the job done, because these are pretty big things to get accomplished. It's not small things. So she says she wants you to know that. She says that she's around you a lot and you feel her from time to time. And she says that she just kind of moves her love towards you, just kind of wishes it towards you, and you know that, and she's supporting you. Your dad, your biological father, is saying that he's very, very proud of you. I kind of understand. He's saying that he's joining your team. He's joining your army. And he showed me a sword. And I think he's saying, look, I'm going to keep the riffraff. I'm going to help keep all that away, so that you can continue to bring about the things that you need to bring about. And so I just kind of want to dig a little bit on that, if that's okay, because of that statement is very interesting. And so I'm saying to your dad, okay, well, what riffraff are you keeping at bay? Just curious. And he says that his is not so much the ones he's dealing with, satanic, demonic energies. These are people who would interfere in your purpose. And he says Tom doesn't need to take any more hits, and you don't need any hits, and you don't need anything to slow you down. And he says that there are people on this planet that don't want consciousness to occur. And so because they feel if other beings are not conscious, they have control and power over them. And he says, for whatever reason, that's a thrill to them. Your dad's really kind of funny. He's just kind of upfront, honest, and to the point and funny. And so he says that these people are going to be few and far between, but because you're really ramping up over the next year, with y'all's podcast going on a larger scale, he's saying that these people will still be interfering in the conscious development. And it won't always be like that. So what they've told me is, because the old grid structure is disintegrating, the people that won't shift and the people that are still tied to the third density consciousness, they will eventually get off the planet. They will leave, because the rule is shift or get off the planet right now. So they won't always be there to interfere. But what they've told me is we're going to see the peak of our death wave on the planet next year and in 2025. And it will take 1 to 2 years for the old 3D grid to finish disintegration. So how does that apply to these people that are interfering? Well, they're tied to the 3D consciousness, right? And so they don't want people to go into 4D consciousness. So you've got about a year or two to deal with them that might interfere or try to kibosh the plan. And your dad is saying, you know, his job is to move them out of the way. He says, for instance, one of them may want to come sabotage the next step, and all of a sudden that person just comes down with the flu and can't get out of the bed for 10 days. So yeah, so he's saying that he's actually allowed to not harm, but to push people out of the way as necessary to clear the path.
Well, he's my 1078. That's police talk for assisting an officer, because he was a retired master sergeant with state police. So,
oh, wow. Okay.
It's all law enforcement. How about that?
Okay. How about that? That's awesome. No wonder he showed me the sword,
Yeah,
you know, like and that he was joining your team. So that's really cool.
I got his his oldest son. I'm the youngest, but his oldest son is also retired state police. And
wow. Yeah, he said it's in the blood.
Yeah, and there's no question. It's like a grape stain. It's hard to get out of the shirt.
Yeah.
It's like that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
any chance for grandkids coming up? Anybody talking about that yet?
Oh my gosh. I forgot to tell Tom about that little soul that was here.
Okay, go ahead.
And then Terry, I'll come back to your grandson. It's a grandson. Now there's a little girl that wants to come in too, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, so Tommy, okay, I can't believe I forgot that. Your mom and dad had this baby or this infant child with them. And it felt like that this child belonged to you, but didn't come through. And I don't want to ask you any too personal questions, because I know that, you know, we're filming. But it looks like there was maybe one opportunity where it wanted to come in and it couldn't get through, or it couldn't get in. And so I'm asking your mom and dad, why did they bring the child through today? And they're telling me that it's going to reroute itself. It's going to come in through another source that's very close to you, and there's going to be a very powerful soul bond with that child.
Okay, I'm not having kids at this age, I don't think.
No. No, it's not you. It's coming in through, oh, wait a minute. It's close to you, Tommy. It's either family or friend. It's pretty darn close to you. And I'm thinking it's a boy. I'm trying to see, like, other than his energy field, I'm trying to see. It's a boy. It's a boy. I'm asking your mom, what's the time period? And I see 2 to 3 years. And this child is going to have this just intense connection to you. Like, he'll want you to pack him around. I see him laying his head on your chest, and he stretches his little arm out, and he's going to pat you a lot. He's so sweet. He'll pat you. He's very comforting. He loves you so much. I mean, this is like going to be like a child you never had. So Tommy, you don't have any children in this life, correct?
We've had this conversation. No blood children, but I have not legally adopted, but they've become my family.
Okay. It's interesting. I mean, he will be like yours, just from another person at another time later, and may be like a grandson or something like that to you, or close friend of the family or something. But you'll know, oh, he was mine that didn't get to come through. You'll feel that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So that's important. So that's so
I
funny.
don't
Your
do,
dad,
I don't do diapers though, so I don't know how this is gonna work out.
well, your dad just said congratulations, Tom. So
It's a
yeah,
boy. We buy you
Yeah.
a cigar.
it's a boy. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, so Terry, okay, this is interesting because I saw a boy first, but then I saw a girl. And that threw me for a minute because there could be an opportunity for two.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm asking your your dad or your grandmother if they want to talk about this. Your grandmother just said you need to let them come through, them, plural. And she says that oh wow. Um I hope I'm getting this right, but it made me really emotional for you. They showed me Leanne, and it feels a little bit like a soul fragment of her or something.
Mhm.
So I don't know, I understand that our soul can split, right? And go into different bodies and different dimensions. And that from what I've been taught, our generation runs around 6 to 8% soul emanation. Now, ours is higher because we've integrated more of our soul essence. But the younger generations coming in are somewhere between 10 and 12%, maybe up to 15 soul emanation. Jesus was 100%. So if that kind of gives us a scale, that's how they've explained it. So this little girl is either a soul thread or a fragment or something of Leanne. And I don't know if that means part of Leanne's soul thread will end. I don't know if that means uh, part of Leanne's essence will integrate with that soul, but it kind of feels that way, Terry.
Yeah, I think so. I think twins are in the offering. One boy,
Okay.
one girl.
Yeah,
Fraternal
that's
twin.
what I,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, that's what I'm seeing. So yeah. And the little boy, he's a shoe-in. I mean, I hear he's coming. He's got his marching orders. That one is set for sure. The little girl looks like this has kind of come up over the last year and a half or something, and feels like been negotiated in spirit world and is getting all kind of worked out. So that's awesome.
That'll be good. Yep. You got to
Yeah.
have an even number because when you go to Disneyland, you got to have somebody to ride with.
That's right. That's great. Yep. So you're both getting grandkids.
Oh, yay.
Yay.
That's it. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I
Yep.
actually have one now.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
that's
That's
good.
awesome.
Well, Taffany, I appreciate this. I think that, people will get a good sense of how a reading looks like, and especially from a top psychic medium and what it should look like. So if they end up somewhere else and it doesn't look much like what you just demonstrated, they'll be able to go, I think I maybe need to search somebody else out, and maybe I need to get on Taffany's list because
Okay.
that was amazing. And I can tell, as I said, confirming from other sources that what Taffany just presented was very, very accurate. So, and I'm in a position to be able to do that. So that's extremely appreciated. And we're going to start to wrap this thing up. So, Daphne, do you have anything you want to leave the listeners, viewers?
Yeah, I do. Thank you. It's totally like you and I are pinging each other's brains. This whole time we've been talking. One last thing that I would like to say, first of all, is thank you guys both so much for the opportunity. The podcast is awesome. I'm so grateful to all the listeners, and everybody will be in my prayers for protection and peace and love and consciousness. So I'll be lifting everybody up. The other thing that I would like to drop a line to say is I'm hoping to have the next book to the editor in spring. And we're looking at maybe Balboa Press. And I have been working with 5 women who all lost their sons. And we're also working with, we brought on a really good astrologer, Thea.
Okay.
And so Thea is actually taking the son's soul or astrological charts and the mother's, putting them together, called an astrological synastry. And it's showing how when the sons left the earth, how that affected the mother. For some, it catapulted them into their spiritual purpose. And so I've channeled for these women for years and got to know their sons on the other side and help them make the connection and heal. So I'm really excited about this book because I know so many people have lost their children. Terry, I know you lost Leanne, and I know that, and I don't want to sound negative when I say this, I know a lot more people are going to be passing, whether it's, you know, children or family or friends or just whomever, because of the movement of things. And so I think that this book will bring a lot of peace, a lot of clarity, a lot of understanding on a soul contract and astrological level. So I'm just asking for prayers from everybody. And hopefully the book will be out, crossing our fingers, next year.
What's the name?
We're kicking it around. You know, we've talked about the glass house. We've talked about several different titles and subtitles. The thing that we learned about the editors is we can go to the editors with a title and a subtitle, and a lot of times they change it on us.
Right.
So that remains to be seen till we work with the editors. But I'm pretty excited about it, and I think it's going to help a lot of people, which is awesome. It'll bring a different level of consciousness to what we call grief, and I think it's going to bring a lot of understanding to bridge that gap. So I'm looking forward to it.
And if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that?
My cell number. They're welcome to text me, is great. I do texting, or they're welcome to call me and leave me a message. But you know, I live in the country on a farm. I'm very humble, down to earth. You know, I work Tuesday through Friday, and so they're welcome to just text me, and I'll get back to them just as soon as I can.
And I can tell the listeners, I've been to Taffany's house, and it's a historical house. It has a whole bunch of
Right.
history attached to it. I don't know that I want to tell everybody. I don't want them all showing up at your house, but she but she is you know, she actually has bears running around in the woods there.
For real.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, for real. Yeah, that's a real
Yeah.
a real bear. So
Yeah.
it's not the Wizard of Oz. So
No.
it is the real bear. And so yeah, she is way out in the boonies. Tom thinks I'm out in the boonies, but Taffany, you've been to my house, and we're not out in the boonies near compared to you where you're at.
Yeah, I'm way out in the sticks, you know, because I had to drive to the library to the nearest town so I could get some good internet reception tonight. So yeah, but it's peaceful. You know, it's quiet, it's peaceful, and you can definitely hear God there. That's what I would say about being that far out. It's silent, and you can definitely hear God.
Yeah, absolutely. Tom, you get some wrap up on this?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you. It's always amazing to hear the stories, hear what comes through. I can, like Terry, validate what you've said tonight. And I would tell the audience, get on the wait list, because I know there is a wait list to get an appointment with Taffany, but it's worth the wait.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys. I really
so-
appreciate you so much for the opportunity.
And we appreciate having you. And again, this is related to our 50th episode. And so it'll be a special that'll come out. So it's going to be a little longer than normal, obviously. But that's what it's all about, because these two ladies that we have brought in, they are just extraordinary in what they do. And actually, I'll have to tell the other lady, which was Dani Jo Butler, you guys validated each other, just so you know. So
Awesome.
very
That's
cool.
great.
Yeah, very cool.
I hope to meet her.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get you hooked up. No doubt about it. So we'll close out here, and I'll say, for all of us here at the Metaphysical Mysteries, man, we really appreciate you sticking with us, and we'll be back soon with another exciting episode. So to all of you, have a great day and enjoy 2024.
Thanks. Bye, guys.
Good day, folks. Hey, this is Dr. Terry and Tom from the Metaphysical Mysteries, and we have with us one of our award-winning psychic mediums, Dani Jo Butler from the great state of South Dakota. How you doing, Dani? You doing good?
Fabulous. Thanks for having me again.
You bet. Well, folks, people get asked all the time about, psychic mediums and who's good and who's not, who we recommend. And well, you got one right here that we do recommend. And, they also ask about how they do their work. How do they actually make connections, or can they make connections every time? Or is it like a phone call, or how does it all work, And so Dani Jo's got years of experience, plus ghost busting experience on top of that. And she's a teacher, and she teaches all these things. So, I guess we would start out with, because we've had you on before, so people can see that and see where you've come from. But if you were going to teach somebody how to get started, what is it that they hear or see, or how is it they gather information if you're a psychic medium, and how can they do it?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. In talking to people will say, oh, you have these gifts that are amazing. And I always stop them and say, everyone has gifts and abilities. We all have the ability to connect to the other side. It's just how much energy we put towards strengthening those muscles in the body. And anybody can do that. It might be harder for some than others. That's a valid fact. But when I started doing mediumship, we have different senses that we use. We see, we hear, we feel, we smell, we taste, things like this. And so in the beginning, for me, it was just images of photographs and objects in my mind. And so that would be what people call clairvoyance. Well, in the beginning, also, you don't know what you're doing. So you don't know what a picture of an apple means. Does it mean New York? Does it mean apple pie? So you have to really try to start interpreting things like that and what they mean for your client, or be very specific of, this is just what I'm seeing. I don't understand what it means for you, but this is what I see. And actually what I've found is I teach, the more you try to step back from interpretation and give what you get, the less you mess things up, right? So sometimes we do get in the way with that. But the one thing that was really cool for me is when I was doing readings, and I got to that point where I just felt like I needed more information about those photos, Spirit said to me, did you know that you could ask questions? And I was like, that's a novel idea. What do you mean I could ask questions?
Yes.
So then it was like, okay, what does that apple mean? Show me more. How does this apply to my client? Is there a specific thing or feeling about it? And while it's all interpretation, so it's not like you're going to have a specific answer every time, over time you grow stronger with your guides and with your information coming through, that you get more confident and clarity in things. So the one factor that will never change is that everyone that you communicate with on the other side is individual. And so if you think, man, I've had a week of fabulous readings, and then along comes John Henry, who didn't like to talk, it's probably going to be a crappy reading because he's hard to communicate with. And that's a real valid thing in readings, where mediums will have days where they feel like they didn't do a good job or give their clients what they needed. But you have to remember that you're dealing with the people who are deceased and how they communicate, what they want to share with their person. The person sitting in front of you who might have expectations that have led them to disappointment. And then, of course, you're dealing with your skills and your memories that they're choosing to use to work through. So a lot of those factors play into everything. But when I teach mediumship, I teach 3 different levels. And beginner's mediumship, we talk a lot about the process, what you're really doing, why you're doing it. And probably the biggest thing I talk about is integrity. And I go over and over with integrity, because there are so many people, as you know, out there not doing the work for the right reasons, and they're the ones that give us a bad name. So, it's always that we work for spirit, always, not for your client, not for yourself, not for fame, but we're working for spirit and their intention. And so that's a big part of my teaching. And then, really simply, I take them through some clair practices. So these clairs are your clairvoyance, clear seeing. I have them close their eyes. Remember, what were you doing at lunch yesterday? Visualize that. See the colors, see the food on your plate when you're eating. See all of those things in your mind and let it play out like a little movie. We do clear hearing. Sit in a quiet room and listen to all the sound. There's so much sound in a quiet room if you pay attention to it. We do the clear tasting of enjoying a meal, the smelling, just smelling the surroundings. So we do all of these practices that show them that they already have the senses, and now they have to strengthen them and tune into them to work with spirit. Probably within the first few hours of working with students, I have them connecting to the other side. We teach them to connect with their gatekeeper guide, who kind of helps protect them and keep them safe. And then we either pull out a picture or an object and we just go at it. And everybody always freaks out in that minute because it's like, oh my God, here I have to, perform. But I've never had someone who could not connect. Now, I have people who get very little information because they're so nervous that they can't keep their vibration high enough to get the information, but I've never had anyone who couldn't connect. So go ahead. You want to ask?
Yeah, I was going to just say, you're talking about taking and focusing their senses. So, because we walk through life and we take for granted what we're hearing and we just dismiss it. We take for granted what we're seeing and dismiss it. But when you focus on just eyes and you look at it, focus just on ears or taste and sound, whatever it is, the senses, I think that's when you really start thinking, I really need to listen better. I need to hear what I'm doing. I need to look at what I'm seeing. And, and I agree with that. I mean, that's what I do when I teach people things, same principles, because you really have to focus on what you have available. Those are the tools that spirit uses, is your five senses. And of course, your sixth sense is the ability to connect those to the other side and so forth. But I was talking last night because I was teaching a class and we were talking about humor on the other side. And that was part of it. And so it's funny. I mean, at one time, it wasn't last night, but back while, I had a family member bring something in, and when I connected to the other side, it was like a whole panel of people, and they were just laughing their ass off at what question he had. It was all funny. They eventually calmed down and they got serious and they gave the answer, but it was so funny. And I don't think people realize there's a lot of humor on the other side. They think a lot of stuff is funny. And, because we always take it so seriously, but I try to be real lighthearted about a lot of it. I mean, when there's time to be serious, but anyway, I don't know if you run into humor or not.
Oh, absolutely. It's probably one of my favorite things. I might be in the middle of one of the most emotional moments with a client, bringing through something they really needed to hear. And the next words out of their person's mouth is something so dumb that I laugh out loud.
Yes.
And they look at me like, and then you could tell they're like, oh, I can't wait for this. Yeah. But yes, the humor is there, and inappropriateness, just like people are when they're living, with inappropriateness. Sometimes I'm a sugarcoater, so sometimes I have a really hard time, I'm going to say it because you told me to, but this feels a little much. Yeah. And everybody always laughs like, oh yeah, that's so my dad.
Yeah. I absolutely correct. And the inappropriateness is there. And I just let it all hang out and said, now hold on, this is going to be a little challenging for you, but here's what is said, and that's funny. And I've got certain people, I don't know if you have this, but certain people that their loved ones are around so much, I connect with them just like instantaneously. So I don't even try it. And these certain people are constantly hooked up to me because I'm around these loved ones. And so they're constantly and they're telling me things that they wouldn't necessarily tell them. And we're having our own conversation over here. Yes. And the loved one's going, hey, now that's not fair. But it's like you make friends with them, and you're getting that data and you can give the data, of course. But I don't know if you get that or not.
Oh, absolutely. I've had actually people's loved ones tell me that I'm doing a good job. I've had them make fun of me for the way that I work. I've had them, just really communicate with me about something I needed to hear that had nothing to do with their loved one's reading. You know, it's just like meeting people, you know, that you would in any encounter. It's still a soul that has a vested interest in you as well. I've had some of them stand in the back of the room like, what are we doing here? Like, and they're holding their Bible, you know, across their chest, like, this is not what I want to be doing today. But you know, they're going to connect with you. They just have to show you that religion was really important and they would not have done this in the living world.
No, and that's what they find out when they get on the other side. They'll go, I didn't believe this was possible at all. And sometimes the loved one did believe it was possible, and they go, you were right. This can be done. I wished I would have known it or believed it.
Yeah,
So.
fantastic stuff though. A couple of experiences I just had today, really, one of my clients, who does some sex coaching. So this is a little taboo topic maybe for some, but anyway, this is what she does.
Yep.
And her dad, she just went to a retreat where they were teaching this kind of stuff, and her dad literally chimed in, was like, I'm signing up for the next one. And I'm like, oh, come on, this is your daughter. This is awkward. But her dad was like, no, sign me up. I want to go. And she's just cracking up about it.
Well, I do tell people that there are spirits that sign up to be in the body just for chocolate and sex.
Yeah. I had a guy who came through he had dated a lady many, many years back. And in her reading, he came through and she was really shocked because he'd been gone a long time. But he showed me every detail. And I was like, okay, I got it. Like, I know you had sex in the back of your car. I got it.
Oh, yeah.
She understands this. But he kept showing it to me.
There's no shame on the other side.
Right.
What do they care? That's something I did in the body. Even Edgar Casey, there was a question about, did people ever get judged for sexuality? And he said, no. I mean, you come into the flesh, and that's very much part of being part of the flesh. And we always try to repress that. But on the other side, they don't think anything of it.
Yeah, that's cool. That actually brings me to another subject, well, similar subject. I had Spirit show me one time that, a lot of the stuff going on in the world with like gender stuff and, multiple wives and, just different things that are going on in the world. We judge a lot of that, but they showed me back in history that, a lot of these things have already been done, and that at those times they were acceptable and now they're not. And we just kind of go through phases of that. And who gets to be the judge of that?
Yeah, we do. Eventually.
Yeah.
But yes, exactly. I mean, as Solomon said, there's nothing new under the sun. We just keep redoing it as we come back and do it a different way. And it's incredible. Like marijuana was illegal in many states, and now in most states, or a lot of states, it's completely legal. So it's went from over here taboo, now it's normal, and people are out, dealing with that every day.
Yeah.
It all changes. So you had something?
Yeah, when you said you talked to different folks on the other side, there's that whole concept of your higher self. Is that one of the people that you rely on, or personas, I guess is a better way to say, not people?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think sometimes it's hard to really kind of differentiate. So I'll give you an example of what I mean. Like if I'm communicating with a woman's mother and her mother's coming through, and then all of a sudden I get some information that I know is not coming from her mother, but I don't know where it came from. Mm-hmm. I might say this is coming from your guides, but it actually might be coming from my higher self and me being just connected a little bit higher. It's hard to really put a pinpoint on that situation. But our higher self is always connected to us. It's kind of like an extension of us. That higher self is actually very wise, has all the knowledge and wisdom. And if we move up into that higher self, we can access like our history and past lives and our purpose here and just all the knowledge. And so I do think that we kind of float up into that when we're working with spirit because we're so high vibration. But I don't know that we necessarily know that's what it is. I often just say, I'm not sure who's telling me this, or your spirit guides are sharing with me. and say it that way, because otherwise they're going to be like, what do you mean this information just randomly came in?
Yeah.
Well, how do we explain that?
Yeah, I totally get that. And sometimes I tell them they put a signature on it if they want to. But other times I get it and there's no signature to it. You can't really tell who it is, but I mean, it's legit information. So I just credit that to the higher vibrations coming through, because you have to people don't realize, I think you have to kind of target your vibrational level. If you're going to deal with dead folks, they're not super high in my book. And then as you move up, you're going to do the God talk. I mean, you're going to be way up here, and your vibration needs to be there as well. And so some people focus their whole practice just on dead folks, and that's fine. And other people focus on more prophecy and higher levels of information that's a broader information for the community at large, the country at large, the world at large, if you will. And I think I've had this where like somebody will come in and they'll do it in your own language that you respect. And some of mine comes in very Shakespearean English. I noticed that. So I'll hear, holy, holy comes Uriel to present. And I hear that first. It's like a drum roll and trumpets kind of thing. And then I know it's going to be a quote religious thing that's going to come in, and they're going to give me some big thing. Or holy, holy comes the keeper of the way, Michael. That kind of stuff. And so that's kind of interesting, but it doesn't happen all the time, but it used to happen a lot more. I think when I was first doing it, I kind of needed to know that it was legit, and it wasn't some negative entity trying to masquerade, so because people do ask that all the time.
Yeah. I want to touch back on, because I don't feel like I fully answered your question here, but from the beginning of when I started working till now, my way that I have worked has continued to change. And I feel like it will continue to change as you get more experience or learn different skills. So to kind of give an example, if I were going to sit down to do a reading for someone, how does that happen for me? What do I actually experience? First of all, my mind gets wiped of everything. So if you just told me your name and I'm going to start my recorder, I might have to ask you your name again. So that happens frequently. My mind is just erased completely. And then I just kind of take a deep breath, focusing on this person's energy. And what I start to get are words sometimes, like a relationship of a person who's going to be on the other side for them. Like I might know this person's got a brother that's gone and a mother. So I know that those two people will be coming through. I might also just see an image of a person standing behind them, or a person's image in my mind. And by the age of the person, I might know, oh, this is a person's child or a grandmother. And so I will often start with those first few things that come in and start describing it. Again, over time, I've honed in on different skills where sometimes I just know this is a grandmother, and I know that you have a piece of this person's jewelry because I feel it. And, just start giving a few little details. And then, of course, when they give you some validation that they understand this, then I kind of go a little further and just ask for any memories or things that you'd like to share. Sometimes it's warm and fuzzy, and sometimes it's I am sorry for the things that I couldn't be and do when I was here. And those messages are pretty important for people, even though they're not always ready for them. But I do hear spirit speaking, sometimes in their own voice. So I might hear that they had a really deep voice or a raspy voice. Sometimes it feels very monotone, like I'm just hearing it in my own voice. And I don't always see photos of people. There are some people who don't want to share much, or maybe they're not able to through their own skills. So I might not ever see a photo of them. And I've actually seen photos of people's loved ones that they've showed me after our readings. Some of them are exactly the way that their photo shows them, and some are completely different. So I don't know why that is, but also could be, how skilled they are at sharing with me, or the strongest the connection might have been.
I think that's a great point you're making there. Is they are the other side of this telephone call. They're the other side, and they have to be skilled in lowering their vibration a little bit to get to us, and we have to raise ours, thus the term medium, meet in the middle kind of thing. And like one of them I had last night just simply showed me a picture of himself, but he couldn't speak. You could tell he would like to, but it was just he wanted me to know he was there and he was looking in, that kind of thing. And so pretty interesting. And I think every psychic medium, correct me if I'm wrong, but that I know of, they kind of create or develop their own language with spirit, with your guides and whatnot. Like you said, what's an apple mean? Well, it may mean New York to some people, may need forbidden fruit in another place, who knows? But you kind of develop your own language as to what they mean.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of mediums who really kind of create like a image library where they will work specifically with that library with spirit. I didn't have the patience for that when I was beginning, so I never sat down and did that. But what I have are very familiar things to me. Ducks mean something specific. The flag means something specific. So they know that if they're showing me that, if they show me the flag, it's going to be military service or police officer related, or strong love of politics and country, very opinionated, right? And then I just feel into that, what I think it might mean, or I might just share, all I got was the flag, and you would understand that. But yeah, this is the way that I would describe it to people who are trying to understand, well, why are they not all the same? You and I are not the same. I imagine that we're all like students in school. You have kindergartners up to graduates, okay? Some of those kindergartners through graduates are living, and some of those kindergartner through graduates are deceased. So if you're communicating with a kindergartner and they have very few skills, they're not going to be able to share with you what a graduate would be able to share. And you can tell the difference because I have spirits who will come through and specifically say in detail with words what they want me to say word for word. I wish they all worked that way because that's easy. But that would be a very advanced soul who has a lot of skill set. And that's how I see it. Not that that's the proper way or correct way, but when I try to explain it to people, that makes a lot of sense for people to understand.
Right. I would agree with that. And let me ask you this, we're talking about advanced stuff. What would you say as you teach your things, the most advanced things that you try to teach? I mean, obviously people have got the groundwork done. They moved up, they can do regular readings, but they want to advance to the highest possible level. What kind of things are we talking about?
So there's a couple of different things I would say. I think the biggest thing is that people can get connected to the other side, but they have a hard time with being open to letting memories come in and letting those real details that they need to give their client. So being open to that and really surrendering to letting the person bring you the information instead of trying to force it. But I also feel like taking them a little bit higher and recognizing that they can tap into those spirit guides and those past lives by just being connected to this person's energy. So if you're seeing something that you bring up to a person and they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, feel into that. Is this a person's past life? Are you picking up on a spirit guide, not a loved one? Because I actually literally had that happen. I was working with a client I had seen before, and there was this man standing behind her that looked like a court jester. And I'm so confused. I'm like, I have no idea what this means. Well, right about the time we finish up her reading, I realized that this is a spirit guide, and this is the first time I've connected with a spirit guide for a client. So when I shared that with her, she was like, I'm so intrigued. I want to learn more. So we actually set up another appointment for me to come and do a spirit guide reading for her, just as a test, a sample. I had never done it before. But the cool thing that happened with that reading was I was driving to her place, thinking about him, hoping that he would come in and give her what she needed. And when I got there, I said, he wants me to tell you that he died in the year 1030.
Wow.
And she goes, 1030 is my birthday.
Wow.
And I said, of course it is, because that is the thing that you needed to hear and I needed to hear to be able to trust that this information is coming from spirit and we can trust it because she can't validate anything I'm telling her, right? And so how do we trust that? Well, we trust it through those little synchronistic things that they give us that make sense.
And they call it what, evidentiary mediumship. So, you know, give me something that I couldn't possibly know, that kind of thing. And yeah, and if they're given the higher stuff, then clearly, yeah, exactly that. I get that. You know, so how do you prep a sitter? Right? We talk about the medium all the time, but the sitter is an important portion of this. And for those folks out here who don't know what a sitter is, that's the person that's maybe paying the money for the mediumship to work. They're sitting down there and listening and trying to interact. So the sitter needs to be prepped in some way. What do you plan on doing with those folks?
So I have a lot of information on my website and I post a lot of information about what a good sitter is, but you can't always prepare a person to be a good sitter. So what I do personally is when I sit down with someone, I can tell if they're going to be a good sitter or not. And so I might have a conversation with them about expectations, about the fact that I'm not there to prove anything to them, but to be the messenger for spirit, and it's up to them to be open to the messages. And so then I might also explain to them that just because your grandmother is your favorite person and that's who you want to hear from today, your dad who never showed up in your life might be the one who's coming to have healing for you. So you need to be open to that. And I let go of expectations. Whether they're going to hear what I actually said or not is up to them. But those are hard sitters because they don't want to validate the things that they don't want to talk about.
Right.
So, and those are for a beginner medium or a medium who's still learning, those are days and readings that are hard.
Very. Yeah, it really is. Yeah. So, Tom, you had something?
Yeah, this goes to a topic we've talked about a few times, you know, about the ethics of all this. When you get a message, or maybe you're getting a reading on a person, and it's almost like the person doing the reading gives them the fluff and buff instead of the real hardcore message that needs to be said. How do you impart that to new students to carry through that, or what's your thoughts on that?
That's a really good question. So we talk about leaving the person better than we found them. So this means there's some due diligence with information that comes in and how they deliver it and what they would and wouldn't deliver. So it's always important to give the message, but I'll give you an example. I have clients, of course, who have loved ones who were murdered or there's questionable deaths and they want answers. And I may know the answers that they are seeking, but spirit may say to me, them knowing this information is not going to benefit or help their healing. So I may not be going to tell them, yes, you should be angry at that person. They had some involvement in this, because they're not going to heal if that's all we tell them. So I often, in my own circumstances, then will tell them what I need to tell them about the fact that your loved one is not coming back. If we had that information, what would it really benefit us if we knew or didn't know? And life is about healing and forgiveness and moving on. So we have conversations like that, but I do just preface my students with being careful with the information they share when it comes to liability, and really understanding the difference in knowing this information is more for me than it is to share. You might get a feeling that your client isn't going to live a long time. That isn't something that you want to say. You might just really say to this person, I feel like your health needs to be a priority.
Yeah, I've had some mediums that will simply, well, some will ask, if you really want to know this, I will tell you, but you know, it is, I always tell them, this is a reading. This is not reality. I mean, readings are what readings are. And we have the ability to change a lot of things before. So I tell them a lot of times it's like your arm. Your arm goes up in one, this is today, tomorrow, the next couple of days, but you get out there ways and it spreads out. You got lots of different ways to go, depending upon your free will and what you choose to do. Like if you want to go to the doctor and get fixed, you want to start eating better, you want to get proper supplements or whatever you're doing, speaking of health. So I tell them that's, trying to predict the future is very difficult when free will is involved.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So an
Absolutely.
extension of this, how often do you find, because, some of the people we've had on the show have talked about, we're here for lessons. How often do you get information that you're not allowed to impart because it interferes with them learning their lesson? Do you run into that often?
Rarely, but it does happen. Probably some of the experiences that I could give you examples for are, let's say I have a woman who's constantly going through men who are not good for her. And I have a feeling there's going to be a really bad situation. I can't prevent her from that lesson, even if I told her. So I'm going to hold that. And I do oftentimes ask their guides to be present with them to help them find an easier way to learn that lesson. So I know if I can make a difference just by prayer, I'll do that. But I also know we're all here. We got things we got to do. But yes, there are times I had a client who I knew wasn't going to live a long time. And I was just told to tell this person that nobody's promised tomorrow. Remember to make every moment count and spend the time you can doing the things you want to do while you have the opportunity. So, when I know those things, I just ask what would be beneficial in this moment. But I do sometimes see people with negative events coming up that I won't share with them. I will share other information if I can help change the situation. But, even if I've given you a warning, I'll give you an example. I had a guy, I was reading for a group. It was right after a funeral. And the family asked me to come together to do this group while they were all together. So I did. And the brother of the man that had passed was there visiting. And I said, hey, listen, you have to be really careful stepping off the curb. Please hold on to the vehicle, because if you don't, you're going to fall and end up in the hospital and get very sick. And I reiterated this and over, and he still didn't grab onto the vehicle. He fell off the curb, ended up with pneumonia, almost died. And I had told him all that was going to happen. But again, is it even really present in your mind in those moments? We're going about our day, and maybe it was a lesson for him in either taking better care or listening or whatever. But even if I do, like I said, give the information, it may still happen.
Right. Makes sense.
People have to make their own way.
Yeah, I mean, I will, when you get really bad information, you do have to kind of weigh that out. And just because I'm getting it doesn't mean it's absolutely going to happen. But if everything stays in line, or if it's one of their I call it milestones that they're trying to hit, yeah, chances are real high that that's actually going to happen, so. And I guess if you get to dealing with people like other mediums that are very well versed, I usually will tell them because they get it and they understand the situation. And I tend to tell them a little bit more than what I might just Joe Sexpack that has no metaphysical sense about them yet. And I really feel like some folks can handle just about anything. I mean, it's kind of like both Tommy and I coming from law enforcement. We've heard everything, seen everything. That's the worst of the worst. And so, what are you going to tell me? I'm going to die next week? Okay. I'm good with that. And, so I kind of judge it on what the person is. What do they have? Do they get the wherewithal to handle that? And if so, I might do that. And if not, I'll just hold it, and go on. I hate to get being the bearer of bad news. I don't like that at all.
No, and I think when you say it like that, as I'm thinking about it, there are clients that I know can handle things, and I have shared that with them. And actually, it's saved some lives in a couple of circumstances.
Yeah.
So I do think there are times when you feel like, oh, I don't want to say this. I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I'm going to say it because I know this person can handle it or needs to hear it. I had a client who had a grandchild that was coming due, and they had waited forever for this baby. And I was pulling cards and I got the heart rate card, and I was like, this baby's going to die. This baby is going to die. And I said, I have to tell you this. You have got to be diligent about watching over this child every second of this child's life. And the grandmother was who I was reading for, and she happened to be present and stopped a SIDS event in the middle of it because she was so diligent about being there as much as she could be and
Right.
saved his life.
Yeah. Incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Intervention from on high.
Yes.
That's cool.
And it's amazing when those things can happen, but they don't always. But yeah, and for me personally, I don't judge anyone else by what they choose or what they feel is right. We all have to work with uh, our own thought process and what we feel we can handle and whatnot. I think the hard part for me is I think that people need to really understand that mediumship and psychic abilities are interpretation. And because of the fact that there is so much change, nobody can ever tell you anything set in stone, like you said. And I reiterate that to people because I had a gentleman come to me recently, and his mom was told that one of her sons would die in a motorcycle accident or a bike accident.
Right.
He quit riding motorcycle for years. And I said, let me tell you what that wasn't supposed to do. It wasn't supposed to stop you from living your life.
Right.
Because you gave up what you love and now you're wanting to go back to it, but you're afraid.
Right.
I said, go back to it and know that if you die doing that, you die doing something you love. I also felt like if that was going to happen, he had already passed that opportunity. But I also said there's a possibility that she misinterpreted what that meant. Because that can happen. We all know that. Sylvia Brown made a huge mistake on TV.
Yes. It happens. And that brings me to what I tell our viewers and listeners is that this is the way Terry does it. Now, do it whatever way you want. But I kind of rate psychic mediums that I interact with. And I say, if you get to the 70 percentile, you get a pretty good psychic medium. And if you're lucky enough to get somebody at the 90th percentile, above 90%, or right at 90 and above, you get an exceptional, person who can connect and get accurate information. Thus, we wouldn't have you on if you weren't above the 90 percentile because there's just so few and far between, honestly, and we get to see all that. And so I want to tell people that, that's the way I view it when I get an opportunity to interact with somebody. Where are they at on my scale of accuracy? And not every day are you as accurate as you are in other days. Your biorhythms are off or whatever the case may be. And I want people to understand that too, because we all have good days and bad days. And ethically, as Tommy and I have talked, a psychic medium should say, I'm just not connecting to anybody today. Here's your money back, or let's reschedule, that kind of thing. And I know other ones that just try to bull their way through it, and it just pisses off the person who's paying good money for a reading, and it's just horrible, and it just doesn't make any sense at all. And I actually have tested that many times myself, because with certain abilities, I don't want to say I screwed with some people, but I kind of did. And they were actually doing cards, and they were actually moving their finger across, and they were going to touch one card. And I said, in my head, they go, no, not that card. And then they would go back, and then come back to the card. No, not that card. They go back over to this one, and I said, okay, that one. And they would pull it out. And it was funny. My wife said, you were screwing with her, weren't you? I said, just learning communication. She was listening. So I knew, because literally the finger was going over the card. She was going to pull. No, not that one. And went on. It was, so I've done, that's a short little story about it. And finally she gave me my money back. She goes, you're above my pay grade. Here's your money back. She said, go on to somebody else, and I said, okay. It was pleasant. We weren't rude, but it was fun. And I just want people to understand that, you can do things that with your mind that people don't believe, and that's okay. But it's fascinating, and you have a good time with it. And I wasn't trying to screw with it real bad. It was just fun to watch as we did it.
Yeah. I think that's a thing that people don't realize is we wouldn't be classified as mind readers. Like, that's not appropriate to think of it that way, but we tap into that energy. So yes, our minds can connect, our souls can connect. And, if you sit down and you're thinking about, am I going to pick up on your Playboy magazines? I'm probably going to pick up on your Playboy magazines because you just sent it to me, right?
Sent it out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep,
But
exactly.
we don't want to sit and read your mind, know your deepest thoughts. Like, we're here to bring healing.
Yeah.
I, I have friends that I goof around with too, or like my husband, he goes, this was a few months ago, he goes, don't make any plans this weekend. I have plans. We're going somewhere.
Yeah.
Oh God. Well, why did you even tell me ahead of time? Because now I know where we're going.
Yeah.
And he's like, you do not. And I said, yes, I do. I'm going to write it down on a piece of paper. I'm going to give it to our daughter. And after we go, you can ask her what it says. Sure enough, I knew exactly where we were going. And that doesn't always happen, but it was an energy. He was sending it out.
Right.
And so I just picked up on it super easy. So yeah, he always tells me, stop using your spidey senses is what he says. But I mean, it's natural ability. Sometimes you can't stop it.
It's really hard. And, even showing up in other people's dreams and having a conversation with them in their dreams, that is
Yes.
amazing. Yeah, it's fun to do. I told one lady, and she was a psychic medium, very advanced, in fact. And so I told her, I said, well, I'm going to come to your place tonight. And it wasn't her house. She was staying in a bed and breakfast or something. I said, I'm going to come and I'm going to show up and I'm going to be at the foot of the bed. And I said, then you'll see me. And then I'm going to walk down. And I said, I'm actually going to lay inside of you and look out your own eyes. And she goes, no. I said, yeah. And the next day she came in, she goes, are you crazy? You actually did that. And I said, yeah, I did do that. And she goes, right where you said. And I said, yeah, I know. And here's what the bed looked like and all that. So it was a kind of a quasi remote view astral travel combo thing. And then you lay back in and you could look out, and I could tell what her body was, the issues were, health wise and other things, because, I laid there. And I don't think people realize just exactly how much you can do some of those things. And they wouldn't believe it anyway. But CIA has done a lot of that kind of stuff, and the Army and other remote viewing type things. So they know there's a lot can be done. But the general public certainly doesn't know. And I don't blame them, but it's still fascinating. And so she had a blast.
Yeah.
She thought it was fun. Yeah, it was good. So should we try do a demo here and
Absolutely.
give Tommy the first up the bat?
Put you on my hot list. You're in the hot seat.
The hot seat. There you go.
Game on.
And if you would,
So,
tell us what kind of a reading you're planning on doing if you change up in midstream, so that the viewers and listeners can say, okay, I see the difference, or whatever.
absolutely. So when I sit down with a client and they say, I'm here to hear from my loved ones, that's all I'm going to focus on. It doesn't mean that's all I'm going to get, but that's what I'm going to intend to do. When I have clients who sit down and they say, I don't know what I'm really here for today, I just felt like I needed to be here, then I say, okay, Spirit, it's in your hands. Take me where I need to go. So that's basically what I'm saying to Spirit now is, it's in your hands. Take me where I need to go for Tom. And I'm just going to kind of focus on your energy here for a little bit. So I'm kind of getting a little bit of all kinds of pieces of information. So I'm just going to kind of start rambling, and then I'll tell you as I'm shifting into other areas. But I feel like I'm picking up mostly on what I would call psychic information right now. I feel like there might be like heart disease or heart type illnesses in your family of other people around you. This isn't being shown to me as anything to worry about, but just know that it could affect you because it's around you and your family. I feel a weight off of my shoulders that feels like this next year is going to be freedom for you. And I actually feel like the word freedom is almost like a new thing for you to chew on. Like, what does that actually mean for me? How does that play out? And I feel like you might actually go into almost kind of like a teenage phase again, where you're like, I'm gonna sow my wild oats and try all the new things again. But I feel like that will bring a lot of youth to you and a lot of fun, maybe some unwanted or what we would call mistake type situations, but just having fun. So I feel like 2024 is going to be a great year for you. They're showing me February as a strong connection, but almost like a strong connection with another person. So I don't know if that means meeting up with an old friend or someone coming into your life, but February being really powerful for connections. Could also be like work related, where it's a partnership type thing. Okay, so I'm going to switch into guides, spirit guides coming in, because I feel the energy of people who want to tell you what you need to hear, and writing. So writing, focusing on writing a story, telling a story, putting information down on paper. Now is the time. Now is the time. Although I feel like you've already done this, so I don't feel like I'm telling you anything new, but maybe you haven't moved forward with what you're supposed to publish or finish. And I feel like they're really pushing that, like, go for it, blazing, what trailblazer, like, go for it. I feel like a lot of what you're writing is true story, though. Like, it actually happened, events that are a test of faith. I don't know what this is. It could be around your law enforcement career, but I'm going to leave that with you also. How do you understand the month of August? Is it a birthday, an anniversary, a passing date?
Nothing that it really resonates for me. Nothing that I know
Give
of.
me a second. This is going to be an interesting year. Honestly, I see things happening to you that you haven't done in ever or in a long time. The month of August is somewhat about a guest appearance. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means you're going on a podcast that's going to be a connection for you, or making friends, or doing something as a guest appearance, but it feels like a fun time. And I keep seeing dollar signs, so it might be actually a financial transaction type situation. And where do you understand the two men with the same name? So are you named after your dad, dad named after grandfather?
I'm the junior. My father was the senior.
Okay. And your dad is on the other side?
Correct.
So I'm going to switch into mediumship here. So we're actually kind of bouncing through all the things right now. And I know there's law enforcement for you, but is there also fire department in your family?
I've worked as a firefighter, paramedic, police lieutenant, public safety diver, whole assortment.
Perfect. Perfect. So your dad was showing me the symbol for firemen, not law enforcement. So I knew that had to connect somehow for you. I actually feel like your dad is telling me that's where you excelled. So either you loved that work or you just did it fantastically. So that was an important part of your life. Your dad doesn't give me the impression of someone who is really eloquent with his words or emotions. I don't feel like he was really good at expressing that. He doesn't give me the warm, fuzzy feeling of a father, right? But I also feel like he was a good dad, but maybe more abrasive or harsh and tough. So I definitely feel like he's acknowledging that. I feel like you've come to terms with that, and you know that's who your dad was. I feel like you were a different man in your life. You wouldn't have been just like that. So you've changed who your dad was and who you are. And there's children for you?
None by blood.
Okay. So I felt like they weren't biological children, but is there 3 children in your life?
I get, how would we describe this, Terry? 2 adopted daughters and a granddaughter, basically.
Oh, perfect.
Not
Okay.
officially adopted, but
Yes. So whether they were legal or biological, spirit doesn't ever show me that, because family is family. It's soul family, right? So those 3 children for you are going to be those 2 daughters and a grandchild, but they're still in your life. And I feel like this is a important part of your life. and actually has made you a little bit of the man you are today, is having those children and grandchild in your life. And your dad is giving the thumbs up with that. He's showing me a uniform. So you might actually have something that was his that would be uniform related. Do you understand that?
Could be. I have many of his things.
Okay. I almost want to say military. So was he military also?
Yes, the Army.
Okay. So that's where it's going to be. If you have that, it's going to be military related. So I have to laugh because your dad, although I'm switching again into another form, your dad is telling me that you want to know if you're coming back again. Are you going to reincarnate? Do you have to come back again? And your dad is laughing like, well, hell yes, you have to come back again. I feel like you kind of think maybe I'm getting there where I won't have to reincarnate again. And maybe it's a choice. I don't know that is a choice for us. But I feel like your dad is laughing like, yep, you're coming back. You have made great progress in this lifetime, and they want to talk a little bit about a past life for you. Ooh, this is something I'm not familiar with. Hold on a sec. You have a lot of lifetimes that deal with battle and wartime. I'm not really skilled in this history. So my dad always did my history homework. That was probably bad for me as a medium. But what I will say is what I understand about it. I'm seeing a picture of you on a horse with a sword, and you have what looks like a helmet that has almost like a middle piece on it. And I feel like as I see you, you're like yelling and your arm is up, and I feel like this is like we're going into battle. The feeling of that gives me like the Trojan War, Trojan horse type energy.
Yep.
So again, I don't know where that is or what that means specifically. And then I switched to another lifetime that would be war related. But I got to get the details about this again. I'm getting so many little pieces of information, I can't piece it together. You were around when Napoleon was around.
Okay.
You were, what is this battle? I want to say the name of it and I can't get it to come to me. Civil War. I think you would have definitely been here for Civil War. And there's another battle that I can't get the name of. It's like Battle of something. And it's not familiar to me, so I'll probably never be able to pull in the name. These lifetimes were very significant for you in regards to being in battle, defending, fighting for what you believe in. And I feel like this lifetime, some of your message or what you brought with you is peace.
Mm-hmm.
Like it is time to find peace and to know peace and whatever that means in your personal life, in your business life, in your career. And this might also make sense to me now why your dad talked about the fire department being that place where you excelled as law enforcement. Sometimes there's battles you can't avoid, right? They're just there. But you don't have that so much in fire department. Maybe a little bit, but not like you would in law enforcement. But I do feel like you're achieving amazing things in this lifetime. So know that you have made great strides here. I see them placing, like, metaphorically a gold star on you, but really not a laughing way to say this, but really saying you've done great work here. The other thing is, I really feel like you're a teacher and you're kind of a subtle teacher who likes to lead kind of by example. And I'll explain it like this. My husband is like very adamant. I'm going to tell you how to do this and you're going to follow it. You're not that kind of teacher. You're kind of like, this is the way to do it. And then you're just encouraging, yes, go and do it. And so you're helping in that way, but you don't have to necessarily be vocal and out there in the front and loud and whatnot. So know that that's where you will excel also, is teaching others and helping them. I have one more thing for you, and then I'm going to switch to Terry. Who's the baby boy that would be on the other side for you?
I have no idea. Never had children or anything like that.
Okay, let me see if I can interpret it. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it with you. But I have specifically Archangel Michael, and I feel like he's pretty intentional with working with you. So I see Archangel Michael as having been a lot of a protector in many careers in your life and still works with you now. I also feel the Saint Christopher medal is significant. So somebody might have actually given you that at some point in your life to protect you, or maybe you had one. So I do feel like there are different saints that you could work with, but Archangel Michael and Saint Christopher are definitely two that are connected to you energetically. I'm going to say this baby boy has got to be immediate family for you. So if you didn't lose a child, it could be a sibling, it could be a sibling's child, it could be a grandparent's child. But it either would have been a child lost right at birth or during pregnancy. So this child is around you significantly somehow. May also have a message for someone if you're able to place that, but I'm going to leave it with you for now, and you can kind of let me know on that. Yeah, a lot of important work that you're doing in your life. I feel like you've lived multiple lifetimes in this life already. And somewhat your body's getting tired, or your soul might be getting tired. But this is a great time in life where everything's going to change for you. And like I said, next year is going to be fantastic. So
Awesome.
see where it takes you.
Sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I know it had to be good because you kept laughing through this. I can imagine you must have been inside my head.
I'm seeing you in, so just as an example, that's a great thing for me to share with you, because I don't normally share some of this with clients, but because you've asked me about the process, I'll share it with you. When I saw you going as like a guest star or being on someone's show or whatever that was that I saw, I literally saw you with $ sunglasses, big like plastic beads around your neck that look like a big gold chain. And I'm like, what am I seeing? And I felt like it wasn't necessarily that is what you're going to look like, but it was that having fun and being young and just being silly. And so when I saw it, of course I laughed because you look silly, right? Big old gold chain and $ sunglasses on, but it was metaphoric for me. And a lot of times it is metaphoric what I see, but that's why I laughed, because I'm like, I cannot literally see you putting on.
Probably not. Sounds more like Mardi Gras.
Right? If there's ever that photo, you're going to have to send it to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Terry, I saw you writing quite a bit. So if you were taking some notes, awesome. I think those are good ways to kind of validate things later.
Yep. Taking notes for Tommy.
Perfect. So I'm going to focus on you for a minute here. So when I switch energy, of course, your energies are very different, and not one is better than the other, just different energy. And when I switch to Terry's, I feel a stronger presence that kind of gives me the impression of, remember, you're connecting with energy that you need to ask permission to connect with this energy. And I was like, oh, yes, you're communicating with me. So I don't know if you were consciously doing that, but you were subconsciously maybe communicating with me to tell me that I have permission to connect with you, which is something that we don't talk about. That's actually something that, is a good thing to ask your client. Is it okay for me to do this and whatnot? But did get that from you, Terry, so I'll just share that with you.
Okay.
I got your permission is what I felt like, but I felt like your energy stopped me and made me realize that I needed to ask that. But I did get permission. I felt like you were giving me that. So I'm going to go right into past lives for you because I feel like when I pick up on psychic abilities here, what I'm getting is a very intelligent energy. When I say that, I almost mean like what comes to mind is like Einstein, where a brilliant mind. And when I feel that, I feel that your mind has stored a lot of information from many lifetimes. And what I feel like is very significant to share about that is I think that you, unlike many people, are able to remember all of the information from other lifetimes and other times. So it's almost like your mind is storing all of that, where most of us, it's stored in like the subconscious or the higher self, but it's like your personal mind right now has all of that information, which is fantastic because you can access it for any situation you're in or any encounter, but very rare. I feel like this is a very rare situation. So please know that. But also shows me that you are a more advanced soul too. We would definitely not call you a kindergartner. We would say that you're getting to that graduation type situation where you're not having a lot more to learn before you have finalized your lessons. Could even be that this would be close to your last lifetime. I think that maybe you would want to come back for a few more things because there's things you want to help and teach other people. But I think at some point you could just be done if you were ready. One of the things that I'm seeing significantly is your throat chakra and your voice. And I don't know if you hold back sometimes or if you have held back and you need to be more willing to just share everything. But it almost feels like this isn't necessarily one-on-one with people, but more on a bigger scale of like being able to share all of that information with the world. And I feel like the truth is the light in the world. And so letting your light be shown in the world through your truth. And I feel like now they're going to mirror Tommy's reading and say, this is where you are supposed to write it. So there's some personal lifetime history that you want to write, and maybe you already are, but I do feel like you're supposed to also publish that. It's almost like it's the works and life of, or the times and life of, and it's a biblical lifetime for you of writing about what went on in biblical times as a prophet or seer during those times and being very close to what I feel like would be like Jesus, or knowing all of those I'm going to call them hierarchies in like the biblical times, and you having a lot of information in that lifetime and things that actually would be, I can't say facts, but more the life and times of that person that would be more factual than some of what people tell us. And so the hard part is not everyone's going to believe you, but you also don't have to worry about that. Think about all the things that are out there that maybe you wouldn't believe that someone else wrote, knowing I'm going to put it out there anyway. Do you have your plans to write that book already?
Yeah, somewhat. It's been a point of contention as to whether I want to put all that out, because what I don't need is a whole bunch of people showing up at my house. You know what I mean? It's the world is challenging enough, and I guess I've had lots of challengings through the lifetime. So the more you speak up, the more likely you are to have. I mean, I'm not worried about being a target of violence, but people coming wanting almost biblical interaction. And that's really challenging. So, I mean, the healings that people would want and that sort of thing, you know, I don't talk about much. I mean, I clearly do them from time to time, but it's, do you actually release that and have to deal with the fallout?
So I would tell you it could go one of two ways. You could write it and have it released closer to your exit of this world, where the information still goes out for the people that need it. And then you've done your due diligence of kind of putting that story out there. Or you could do it sooner than later and have a whole new door of opportunity to help people on a different scale. Now, does this level things up for you and change life dramatically? Yes. So you'd have to be willing to make those changes and let go of some things that you have going on now. And only you can be the judge of which one of those is right for you.
Right.
I personally, I personally feel like you would help more people by doing it while you're still here in this world. But again, you and I both know we have the right to choose what works best for us, regardless of our contract and what's expected. So I'll just tell it to you that way. You had longer hair when you were young?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, not crazy, but yeah.
Okay. I just got an image quickly of a younger version of you that would have had a little bit longer hair. And have you in your life been, I can't find the right wording for this, teased for being too vocal or too opinionated or too set in your way?
Probably in some respects, because I say what I say and I know what I say is correct. I try to make sure that.
So I feel like one thing that I want to say in regards to that. So when I say it, I can't really find the right words to say it. It doesn't feel like I'm saying it properly. But when I said it and you said yes, what Spirit is saying is this is confidence.
Yeah.
This is confidence, and you exhibit confidence.
Yeah, the difference between being egotistic and confident is a fine line, and people don't necessarily recognize that. They might say that's being egotistical, and so I try to restrict what I say and almost have to put that disclaimer on there that this is not being egotistical, it's just being confident. Because with the claircognizance, which we didn't talk about what that is, but just a clear knowing level. Somebody brings a situation from me. I said, it's this. Well, how do you know that? I just know that. And I don't have to turn it on. It's on all the time. It's just complete access. Just pull it out. You're there. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of fun. And I think I got that from that biblical life. You hang around with the right guys. Quite a team to hang around with, and you learn from a good buddy who everybody knows, and you know what I'm saying, that you pick up on all that. But all that was all I want people to understand. All that was pre-planned. All those souls that people think are, 12 stupid fishermen or whatever, that was all pre-planned way before. I mean, beyond time, that there was going to be this Christ period, and all these guys were going to come in. I mean, the way Jesus found these 12 guys was from their torch or from their light. They could stand in a huge sea of people, but he could walk in and they could see it. That's the one. And so they were given, but the way it's portrayed is that they're complete idiots, and they're bumbling fools in a lot of ways. And nothing happened until after Pentecost. And that's when everything started to change. And, there's some truth to that, I suppose, in what metamorphosis took place for reasons. But if you remember Elijah and Elisha, Elisha followed Elijah around for a long time, and the only thing he really asked for was a double dose of whatever Elijah had. And Elisha did the most miracles of anybody other than Jesus. But when the mantle falls, that's a heavy mantle to carry. And in that time, the mantle fell into 12 different hands because it was so heavy to carry. And so it's a different time period, different focus. And what has come forward is a bastardized version of those days. And it's a bastardized version of the truth. And they've made it so complex when it was really so simple. And lots to be learned. I'm not here to judge what people do, but as long as they understand where their social conditioning came from, they're socially conditioned to believe certain things. If you grow up in India, you grow up in Indiana, you grow up wherever, you're going to be socially conditioned into that particular country, that religion that your parents may have. And as long as they can step away from that at some point and say, okay, I was socially conditioned to believe that, but is that real? And people have to go out on their own and they have to interpret those things and they have to find the resources. And with the internet now, you don't have to go away to a mystery school. You can sit in your own den and find those things. You want to read the Dead Sea Scrolls? Well, then look it up. You can. And that's the beauty of it. You don't have to have clergy telling you. You can figure it out yourself. But people are needing to take time to do that. And that's where the evolution of consciousness comes, is by their own acceptance of knowledge. And there's enough clues that we have all left ourselves, because since reincarnation is what it is, when you write the books, they always want you to write books. The reason for it is it's a clue for when you and your friends come back, you can read that book that you left in the last lifetime. So there's so many clues. It's like Sherlock Holmes just finding the clues that he left at the previous crime scene. And that's, a simplistic view of it. But yeah, we did leave a lot of clues for ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have a powerful energy. I could probably I mean, it's all, you've heard it all. It's all been done for you before. There's nothing new that I'm probably going to tell you. But, with talking about 2024 and talking about people, can believe what they believe. One thing I want to share, just kind of in acknowledging, 2024 and what people need to hear, is that, you don't have to believe what everyone else believes because it's been handed down to you. You also don't need anyone else to help you believe anything.
Right.
That if you sit with yourself and really know yourself, you'll know what is right. And honestly, if we could just get back to each of us finding a way to contribute more good and light in the world for ourselves and for others, this is what's going to, turn the tables for us to get back to a beautiful world. There's good things happening, but we have so much negative too. It's such a teeter-totter constantly, but there is hope, and the 2024 has a lot of good coming. It's going to be challenging for people who aren't ready for it, but those that are riding the wave into awakening, I feel like it's going to be a good thing. So.
Any dead folks, well, what we call dead folks, are completely alive, just FYI listeners, they're completely alive, but out of body, I'll call them out of body folks. Anybody want to talk?
Who is the man who would be the J name for you? J-O, John or Joe, Joseph, not Joseph. I want to place him older than you and out to your side. So it's either going to be an in-law or an acquaintance, probably not a family member for you unless it's an uncle or an uncle-in-law. The J name can also be a middle name.
James?
James would be a connection for me, possibly, but let me go further with that and see what he wants to say. Well, I don't know. I don't know if you're going to know who this is. You probably will if you think about it long enough. He's talking about documentation or paperwork regarding someone. And I feel like if I were to explain this to you, like, let's say this is a an uncle, I'm going to make this up. Let's say it's an uncle, and he's saying, hey, you've got grandpa's documentation and someone else in the family was hoping to have some of this or needs some of this for some reason. He might be coming through to say, hey, you have this documentation that someone else needs or wants in the family. This is what I feel like this man is saying, but I don't know if it's family or if it's work related or what that means. Does that make any sense to you?
Well, could be. Just trying to put a J name to it. Do they give a description of their job, of their occupation?
So it would be someone around you who has a job that would be something that they did some kind of accomplishment where it was something historic or something documented. So like an award or an acknowledgement. And so that for me is typically military or law enforcement, but it doesn't mean that's what it is. But that's what the reference would be for me, is like military or law enforcement. Could be something that I'm not familiar with. I also will say if the J name is the only thing messing you up, don't fixate on that, because it could be someone else they're trying to bring through. But I feel like this man would have passed at an age that feels a little younger than he should have been. So I don't feel like he lived into his 90s. He could have been in his 60s, but he wouldn't have been much older than that.
Not from a homicide, suicide, or accident?
So as you said that, I'm getting head pain, and I definitely feel like his passing would have involved his head or upper body, and most likely in a trauma type situation or a quick passing. I'm not seeing it, I'm just feeling it.
I did have an uncle who died from a brain cancer that went pretty quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you know anything about documentation that someone needs?
It's not striking me, but you know,
Okay.
maybe not. I mean,
It's okay. I'll leave it with you. Let me see if he has anything else or something else he would like to say. So he showed me a little bit more of that. This is a great thing, again, for me to explain to people. So if I just sat with it for a minute, I got more information. What I'm seeing is what looks like, could be a newspaper article, could be some paperwork on him that is in a box that nobody knows about or hasn't thought about for years. And at some point, someone's going to pull this out and be like, oh my gosh, did you know about this? And they're going to share it with the family, and you're going to see that and you're going to go, oh, this is that thing that Dani was talking about. So he could have been in the paper for something. He could have been acknowledged for something. I don't know, but it'll come to light in the right timing. And then he brings through another family member, but this is an older female. So I see her with like curlers in her hair. So in her younger years, this would have been how she would have done her hair. And I feel like she would be an old school like that. I see her with like the knee stockings and older style glasses. And I feel like she's been gone a while. So this could be his mom maybe, or a grandmother for you. Although if it fits for someone else in the family, just know it's going to be a generation 1 or 2 above you. There's also a W name, but where does the W name come in with a surname, like a last name?
I had a William, but that wouldn't have been a last name.
That's funny, because William is what I heard, because my mom's maiden name is Williams, but who would William be then?
My biological father.
Oh, okay. So maybe this is just how he got me to that. So let me just ask what he would like to share.
He was showing up earlier, so I figured that might be him.
Yep. He just is telling me that this is a time of passing the torch, is what I feel like he's saying. And kind of what he's saying is like, you've lost your biological dad, you're about to lose another father figure. And it's almost like they're passing that torch of patriarch energy on to you now. And so now you get to be that person in the family. That
also means you're next on the menu.
next on the menu. Yes, my sugar coater would never say it that way, but yes, you're absolutely right. I feel like though, just know that he's very much at peace, knowing that you're at peace with everything. I feel like you've processed a lot of stuff in regards to father and stepfather and things like this, but I feel like you're in a good place. If I could tell you anything, there's support and love coming through from him, which I feel like is needed in this day and age for you. But I also don't feel like you need anything from him specifically. So know that he understands that as well. But a lot of pride coming through. And I know that as you say your goodbye, as this new transition is happening, it's just a closing of a chapter for you. And you know, we move on to the next thing.
Cycle of life.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool.
I have a daughter who passed some years ago, and on occasion she will come through just to give me an update on her status because she took off for some schooling on the other side. Kind of fun.
Was there addiction for her?
Yep.
She's a smart aleck.
Yes, she is.
She very much, when I asked for her energy, was very present, but almost wants to give you a hard time. Like, you don't need Dani to communicate with me. Why are you asking for me? And I feel like she's giving you a little bit of shit because you already know she's present. And so she's blowing a kiss with that.
Mhm.
Very fun energy, very strong-willed, had a lot of her own battles with darkness in this world. But as you well know, very much at peace, and you'll see her again. The two of you are not done.
True. And I think she may be headed back this way pretty quick.
And that could be why I'm saying it that way. So if she's going to come back into this world, you may see her in this lifetime again.
I think so. We've got, yep. So maybe grandchild, something of that nature, maybe. We'll see. Yeah.
That's cool.
If her brother wants to put up with her for another round. So
might be their karmic debt.
Who
knows?
And you never know about these things. It's always fun. So yeah, that's good. Yeah. And I'm just thinking about the J. I think I got it figured out. But what I want to point out to folks is when Dani or any other reader tells you that, I'm going to leave this with you, it's because it may not be something you recollect right at the moment, but a week from now or 2 weeks from now, all of a sudden it just dawns on you, or you get signs and you go, oh, well, that's what it was. Well, I was so stupid. I didn't remember that, so that's part of it too. And I think people need to understand when they say you're going to let it sit with you, that's for you to contemplate on, because there's something to that.
Yeah. So, some people have terrible memories. And so oftentimes they might need something to trigger their memory for an event or a situation, and I think in the beginning as a medium, you struggle with that because you want to understand it. You want the client to understand it. And Spirit very clearly has told me it's none of my business. Like, give the information and move on. So when I feel like, okay, this client isn't going to pick it up right now, okay, I'll leave it with you and you'll understand it in the right timing or you won't. I had a client today who said, I got to give you some validations. You said you talked about this and this and this and all of these things, happened. But if we'd have sat there that day, she'd have never been able to understand it. She had to have time to process or things to happen. So yeah, we can't get stuck on things. We just got to keep moving forward. And again,
I'm sorry.
No,
I'm just going to switch gears for just a second, because the listener's going to ask about angels. Are you talking to angels? What is the difference in guides, angels, and so forth? And if there are angels, which ones are around us, and how do you know the difference?
Yeah, so I have clients who will ask me who their guardian angel is, what archangels might be working with them, things like this. And so I do tap into those realms. I do stay in more of the psychic and mediumship for the majority of my work. But when it's needed or when someone asks for it, I will tap in and show them times in their life when the guardian angel showed up. what kind of events happen. The guardian angel may give me a feeling about their energy or a name if they want to have them associate with something. Of course, guardian angels were never humans. They don't necessarily have a human name. But you know, whatever's for the human experience, they'll give me. And I work with several of the archangels, so they often show up for people for different things. And I would, you know, if I were just to explain it in the way that I understand it, we're all spirit beings. Now, whether you call that dead people, ghost, angel, archangel, whatnot, just different levels. It's just different levels of vibrations that those people or souls are classified in. So, you know, there are some that were never human. I know guardian angels and archangels, most of them were not ever perceived to be human. And again, you know, this could be just our perception, but for the most part, you know, could you consider your family members angels? Yes, technically they're spirit, you know, you could call that an angel. But what I consider angels specifically are going to be that guardian angel that protects you throughout your lifetime. Angels that show up when people die. I have seen beautiful beings of light, angels that show up for that. And archangels are angels. But honestly, we are angels too, because we are given wings when we hit the spirit realm, right? We are an angel of light, or a light being. So it's just a terminology. It's just a label, but that's how I see it.
I agree with that. Yep, it's true. So, well, fantastic. Dani, tell us what's going on in your life, books or projects, or so that we can send the listeners to your products.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you check out my website, psychicmediumdanijo.com, and you go to the events tab, this will show you all of the classes. I'm teaching quite a bit, mediumship and spiritual development. And this year, actually, I have a whole slew of classes that will be going up on a whole nother page on my website where people can take little mini courses on different subjects. I have a couple of books in the work. I don't think that I'll publish in 2024 unless, God willing, something happens to get that out. But I do have several books that I'm writing, some of it channeled through a set of guides that call themselves the Three Wise Men. And this is King Leo, Gideon, and Moses, who kind of have a story that they want to tell about hope, faith, and love.
Good
And
guys,
so
good guys. I highly recommend them.
Yes, and I feel like that's a part of the reason we have a connection. So definitely that's a project that I want to focus on. But I really am teaching quite a bit, seeing clients still. So check out all those things there, and you know, follow us on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram.
Well, for the listeners, Dani Jo does just a fantastic job, and we've got our 50th anniversary show here coming up, and so we wanted to find someone who just does an excellent job to highlight, you know, what psychic mediumship's all about. So I am going to endorse her as somebody you should get a hold of. I know she's busy, but you know, stand in line. It'll be worth it. And I hope with the demonstrations that she provided you here with Tommy and I mean, there was tons of validation with all this. At least for mine, I can say that. And I think for Tom as well. So she is the above 90 percentile, definitely. And that's a AAA rating for me anyway. So Tom, you got anything to wrap up with?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for coming back and sharing your time with us and your knowledge and your experience. I mean, we're trying to get this message out about the metaphysical, and boy, you're the superstar in that realm to share that message with the audience. So thank you.
Thank you. Truly, it's an honor, truly an honor to be with you guys again. And I just love and appreciate your time as well. So thanks for having me.
Well, we loved having you. And for everybody here on the Metaphysical Mysteries, Tommy and I will be back with another guest. And man, take a look at Dani's stuff, because I think you're going to really enjoy it. So for all of us here, we will see you soon.